Serial number 0523, Xiaolu, Awakening failed. At Linhai number 1 High School, the career awakening ceremony was underway. Xiaolu stared at the shattered awakening stone. His mind went completely blank. He had been in this world for 18 years. He'd worked himself to death overworking in his past life. So after transmigrating, he'd thought he'd finally get to be the protagonist of his story. Yet fate had thrown him a terrible start. His parents had passed away long ago. If not for the financial support from his beautiful young aunt, he wouldn't even have scraped together enough money for an awakening stone. And now, his awakening had failed completely. He would have settled for even a civilian life profession. In this world where every person unlocks a career upon awakening, those who fail are trapped at the very bottom of society. Without supernatural power to bolster their bodies, they can only scrape by doing grueling manual labor. Hurry down from the stage after your awakening, will you? The rest of us are still waiting our turns, useless bottom feeder. Get lost already. TSK. Top of the class in academics means nothing. He still crashed and burned. All that hard studying, and he's worse off than the slackers who slept through every lecture in the back row. I'm thrilled to finally stand above this guy. Hey, I heard Xiaolu has a really pretty young aunt. I caught a glimpse of her once from far away. She's fair-skinned and gorgeous. A flood of murmurs rose behind Xiaolu, many of them cutting and harsh. But he paid them no mind. Something strange had caught his attention. His awakening had failed, so why had his personal status panel appeared before his eyes? Name, Xiaolu. Career, None level, LV. 1 stats, Strength 8, Agility 7, Intelligence 7, Stamina 10 skills. None equipment, none. By all known rules, anyone who failed awakening would never unlock a status panel and remain an ordinary mortal forever. Could there still be a chance for him? Amid the jeers, Xiaolu stepped down and sat in a corner. The translucent status panel hovered steadily in his field of vision. He double-checked repeatedly. He truly had no career, yet the panel was undeniably real. Wait a minute, what's this? He spotted golden tiny text in the bottom right corner. Your body's latent energy far exceeds the awakening stone's bearing capacity. The awakening stone shattered under the strain. You may take a fate choice to gain a special boon to kickstart your journey. My latent energy was too strong and blew up the awakening stone. Why didn't it say that earlier? Relief washed over Xiaolu the second he read the words. No matter what, he still had hope. But what exactly were these fate choices? He frowned in thought, and the golden text shifted to display 4 options. Fate choice. Stand before all teachers and students and shout at the top of your lungs, I am the strongest. You will be randomly granted a hidden career matching your extraordinary latent power. Fate choice. Perform a sword dance in pouring rain. Your blades slash tearing open the heavens to showcase unmatched heroic spirit. Once the crowd recognizes your unparalleled valor, all your skill levels will increase by 10. Fate choice. Prove you are heaven's favored child, an unparalleled genius. Display unyielding domineering resolve before the entire school, and every monster drops a divine artifact. Fate choice. Drop to your knees and weep, admitting you are powerless and only wish to live an ordinary, quiet life. You will awaken a civilian career and jump 30 levels instantly. Xiaolu stared at the choices, stunned. He carefully analyzed each option one by one. The second choice was undoubtedly the hardest. Not only would he need to split the sky with his sword in the rain, he also had to convince everyone of his peerless heroism. The difficulty was off the charts. The third choice was the second toughest. He needed to display overwhelming domineering aura before the whole school. Yet everyone already saw him as a failed awakener. Prejudice was an unshakable mountain. This task would not be easy either. The remaining 2 options carried almost no difficulty. He immediately ruled out the fourth. He would never break down crying on his knees, and civilian professions held no appeal for him at all. That left the first choice as the most viable. A hidden career would surely be powerful, but there was a risk of drawing a worthless random one. In terms of pure combat potential, however, the third choice stood head and shoulders. Earning a divine artifact for every monster killed perfectly made up for his lack of a formal career. As he weighed his options, mocking laughter drifted over from a distance. Brother Sun, look at that loser Xiaolu. Top student or not, his awakening amounted to nothing. Sun Hao slouched back in his chair, legs crossed, sneering coldly. I told you long ago a poor kid like him could never rise up. By the way, you mentioned his aunt. Yeah. Her face and figure are stunning, just incredible. One lackey leaned in, grinning suggestively. Does Brother Sun have an interest in her? Sun Hao licked his lips. Women in their mid-20s have a unique charm. Everyone raves about 18-year-olds, but I disagree. Fair skin, long legs, she's absolutely breathtaking. The group exchanged knowing smirks. If young Master Sun makes a move, she'll be his in no time. The pockmarked lackey flattered him. Women like her always put on a cold front, but crave wealth deep down. Give her enough money, and she'll agree to anything. The tall, thin lackey chimed in. Exactly. Young Master Sun has lines of women chasing him. It's a privilege for her to catch your eye. Sun Hao basked in their praise, glancing toward Xia Li's corner and lowering his voice. Is that kid still hanging around? Perfect. Go book a hotel room first. Then tell him to bring his aunt over later. If that careerless brat refuses, beat him until he complies. Young Master Sun is brilliant. The pockmarked man's eyes crinkled into slits with delight. A kid without an awakened career can't stand up to you. Crushing him will be as easy as squashing an ant. Enough chatter. Sun Hao waved a hand, unable to hide his triumphant grin. All surrounding students stared at their laps. They pretended not to hear, not a single person daring to speak up. Sun Hao's father led Black Tiger Guild of Linhai, commanding over 100 awakened fighters. He was a local tyrant in this city. Even regular career awakeners avoided crossing him, let alone ordinary students. Xiaolu heard every unfiltered word the group said. He lifted his head, sweeping his gaze across each of their faces. Nearly every teacher and student within earshot had listened in, yet none dared intervene. The terms of fate choice flashed through his mind. Display unyielding domineering resolve before the entire school. Xiaolu stood and strode straight toward them. The lackeys froze in surprise. Huh? Why is he walking over here on his own? Young Master Sun. He must have overheard us and wants to beg for mercy. Sun Hao rested his chin in one hand, a lewd smile spreading. This kid has some sense. If he handles this properly, I'll hire him as a gatekeeper at my estate. The lackeys stepped aside to clear a path. Sun Hao watched Xiaolu approach, tilted his chin upward, and sneered. What's this? You've come to hand your aunt over? As long as you. He never finished his sentence. Xiaolu drew back his fist and slammed it straight into Sun Hao's face. All 8 points of his strength stat surged. Crack. The sharp sound of a broken nasal bone echoed out. Sun Hao toppled backward off his chair, the back of his skull slamming hard against the ground. Blood and tears streaked down his face. Clutching his nose, he shook all over from agony, glaring at Xiaolu through his fingers. His voice cracking with rage. Have you lost your mind? How dare you hit me? You're dead. Every person tied to you is dead. I'll make you and your aunt suffer endless torment. Xiaolu stared down at him coldly, then stepped forward, grabbed Sun Hao by the throat, and rained more punches down on his head. Sun Hao had not yet undergone his awakening, leaving him a regular mortal with no combat power. Blow after blow left him seeing stars. His lackeys snapped out of their shock and shouted, Young Master Sun, as they charged. Yet they could not budge him an inch. The gap between someone with an unlocked status panel and ordinary people without one was massive. The watching student crowd erupted into chaos. Whoa, Xiaoli's completely lost his mind. He must have thought he had nothing left to lose after failing his awakening, then snapped when he heard them insulting his aunt. Sigh, this world is so unfair. Without a career, you can't get anywhere in life. Look how strong Xiaolu is. None of those lackeys can drag him off no matter how hard they try. And Sun Hao can't even stand up. Insane guts. Countless students whispered among themselves. Virtually the entire school watched. With those punches, Xiaolu had stood firm and defended his dignity. Many onlookers secretly admired his courage. Xiaolu gritted his teeth, throwing punch after punch. A golden system prompt box suddenly popped up before his eyes. Fate choice. Display unyielding domineering resolve detected host has performed an unyielding, resolute act witnessed by all teachers and students. Task conditions completed bloom 1 artifact per monster slain, ability activated. Xiaolu breathed a quiet sigh of relief upon seeing the notification. The split second he relaxed his grip, Sun Hao's lackeys pulled him away, leaving Sun Hao sprawled on the ground covered in blood. You fool, you're asking for death striking young Master Sun. Beat him, thrash him hard. Young Master Sun, are you alright? Should we call an ambulance? Sun Hao staggered to his feet, jaw tight with hatred. His eyes were burning into Xiaolu. If glares could cut flesh, Xiaolu would have been stabbed 1,000 times over. You brat, you've signed your own death warrant. Before he could finish his threat, Xiaoli's homeroom teacher Su Yin glanced over and spoke up. Serial number 06132. Sun Hao, step up for your awakening ceremony. Serial number 06133. Zhang Matzi, step up for your awakening ceremony. It was Sun Hao and all his lackeys' turns to undergo awakening right then. Sun Hao shot Xiaolu a venomous glare, forced to set aside his revenge for the moment as he climbed onto the awakening platform. Sun Hao glowered at Xia Lu once more, pressing a palm to his bleeding nose as he walked onto the platform. The second his hand touched the awakening stone, a blinding golden pillar of light shot straight into the sky. The light bathed the entire awakening square in gold. The whole crowd fell dead silent for a heartbeat. Then deafening gasps and shouts exploded outward. Golden awakening radiance. I can't believe it. He pulled a gold tier awakening. What rank of career is this? I thought even a rank awakenings don't produce light pillars. S rank, at minimum an S rank career. Wow, a powerful family background paired with an S rank career. Sun's future is limitless. It's heartbreaking to compare our fates. Xia Lu is finished for good. Sun Hao will never let this slide. And S rank career holders hold special legal privileges. Every onlooker felt a mix of shock and relief. They were grateful they'd never crossed Sun Hao. Homeroom teacher Su Yin stared at the awakening results in shock before announcing to the crowd. Serial number 06132, awakening successful. S-rank combat career, Blazing Sun Sword Sage. Sun Hao himself froze for a second, then threw back his head and roared with wild laughter. Ha ha ha, incredible. This is amazing, an S-rank career. I'm an S-rank awakener, Blazing Sun Sword Sage. He twisted sharply to face Xia Li's corner, a terrifying, blood-streaked grin stretching across his face as his sharp gaze bore into Xia Lu. One after another, his lackeys completed their awakenings. Zhang Mozi unlocked B-rank Shadow Assassin. The tall thin man gained C-rank Rock Shield Guardian, and every other lackey held at minimum a C-rank combat career. The awakening square descended into total uproar. All pure combat careers. How are they this lucky? The heavens are unjust. Good people get nothing, while troublemakers draw top-tier awakenings. Shush, keep your voice down. If they hear you talking like that, you'll suffer terrible consequences. Now Sun Hao will run wild with no resistance. The school principal and academic director hurried down from the podium in person. The principal clasped Sun Hao's hands with an effusive smile. Congratulations, Sun Hao. You are the pride of Linhai No. 1 High School. The academic director nodded rapidly. Blazing Sun Sword Sage, your future holds boundless promise. Sun Hao held his head high, soaking up their flattery, his gaze scanning the crowd all the while. The boy who'd punched him. He shoved past the crowd and marched to the corner where Xia Lu had sat earlier. Empty. Where did he go? Sun Hao's face darkened instantly. Zhang Mozi hurried to his side. Young master Sun, that kid slipped away a little while ago. Sun Hao wiped blood from his cheeks, a cold smirk tugging at his lips. Run? A monk can run, but his temple stays behind. Send men to watch his residence. Now that I'm S rank, crushing him will be even simpler than squashing an ant. Let's head to the dungeon to level up and raise our levels first. Once I grow stronger, who will dare utter a word of dissent to me? And don't forget about Xia Li's ant. Outside the awakening square, Xia Lu walked straight toward the school gates without a single backward glance. The chaotic noise behind him faded farther and farther away. He kept walking, his mind fixed on protecting his aunt. He pulled out his phone and dialed her number at once. The call connected after only a few rings, and a warm, cheerful voice sounded from the speaker. Xiaolu, how did the awakening ceremony go today? Recalling the shattered awakening stone, Xia Lu replied instinctively. It went all right. He hadn't unlocked a formal career, but he held the unique ability to gain a divine artifact for every monster he killed. All right? What do you mean by all right? His aunt Lu Shiyu paused, picking up on the unease. Did you get a C-rank career? Or a civilian profession? Don't stress too much no matter what you drew. Every career has its own path to survive. Look at me. I only have a D-rank career. And I still work as a government official. Auntie, let's set that aside for now. The outcome isn't as bad as you're imagining, I promise. I need to tell you something far more serious. Xia Lu quickened his pace, his tone dropping low with gravity. Something serious? What is it? Xia Lu recounted every word of Sun Hao's threats and insults word for word to his aunt. The situation was grim, but warning her would let her prepare ahead of time. Silence hung on the line for a long moment after she finished listening. Then her voice came through, tight with urgency. Xiaolu, this matter is severe, but Sun Hao can't target me openly for now. As a government employee, I'm protected by official regulations. His influence doesn't stretch far enough to harm me at work. Still, things could turn dangerous given enough time. Don't worry over much. I have powerful contacts higher up to back me. After hanging up the call, Xia Li's expression turned heavy. In a way, he dragged his aunt into this trouble. He needed to resolve the threat as quickly as possible. The fastest path to power right now was to clear a dungeon, claim his first divine artifact, and build up his strength from there. Yet he was completely unarmed and stat-stripped with no combat skills. Slaying even a single monster with only his bare fists would be nearly impossible. He could never ask anyone for help. If word spread that he gained a divine artifact with every kill, powerful factions would lock him away to farm artifacts non-stop for the rest of his life. An innocent man becomes a target merely for possessing a priceless treasure. He checked public dungeon guides online. The easiest beginner dungeon was the Goblin Nest. These small green-skinned creatures were notoriously violent and aggressive. I need to prepare every possible supply before going in. I can't rush into the dungeon unprepared. After careful planning, Xiaolu decided to purchase a human-shaped decoy to bring with him. Goblins were extremely hostile to unfamiliar living creatures. Spotting the decoy would draw all their attention instantly. He would then set traps to strike them down one by one. Planning the ambush would give a massive advantage. He had just over 1,000 yuan left in his bank account. He planned to spend 500 on a cheap, full-size human decoy. Goblins would not care about its quality. It would serve its purpose perfectly. He would use the remaining 500 yuan to buy a second-hand low-grade battle axe discarded by another awakener. Item name: Rusted Battle Axe Type. Weapon Compatible Careers. All Warrior Class Professions Quality. Junk Tier. Attack Power: 315. Special Effect: any damage exceeding an enemy's remaining health will sever their body in one strike. Description: worth 50 yuan per kilo as scrap metal. This axe weighs 3 kilos total. Xiaolu calculated the loss. He'd lose 350 yuan if he resold it as scrap later. But if it let him slay a goblin and claim his first divine artifact, the cost was entirely worth it. Goblins traveled in large packs, so luring them out one at a time would prove difficult without bait. Roughly 5 minutes later, a delivery rider arrived carrying a tall, tightly sealed cardboard box large enough to hold the decoy. The discreet packaging spared Xiaolu from awkward stares from passers-by. I'm putting every last cent I own into this plan. Watch out, little goblins, I'm coming for you. After double-checking all his supplies to confirm nothing was missing, Xiaolu rushed straight for the LV.1 LV.10 Goblin Nest dungeon. Everything rode on this single attempt to prove his worth. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a message. He'd planned to ignore it entirely, but finally unlocked his screen to check the notification. The class group chat had piled up over 99 unread messages. He scrolled upward and found the message posted by Head Teacher Su Yan. Head Teacher Su Yan, official announcement. 7 days from now, the school will host the Professional Awakener Assessment. All students who pass the assessment will receive corresponding rewards and may freely choose to venture to the front line, the endless battlefield for training, or stay at the academy to pursue further studies. All students must level up now. A follow-up message appeared right below. Head Teacher Su Yan. Additionally, per the laws of Great Xia, anyone who passes the Professional Awakener Assessment will officially become a state-affiliated professional, protected by the Great Xia government. No individual may retaliate against any professional awakener or their immediate family for any reason. Violators will face severe punishment. Xia Li's gaze lingered on the last sentence. It sounded as if it had been written specifically for someone. The group chat instantly blew up. Received. Thank you, Teacher Su, for the notice. Got it. I need to grind levels non-stop for the next 7 days. I'm definitely skipping the endless battlefield. It's too dangerous. Duh, with your D-tier life profession, you just get killed instantly out there. Soon a message popped up, overriding all other chatter. Sun Hao Xiaolu? Xiaolu, are you in the group? Say something. The chat went dead silent in an instant. Sun Hao. Xiaolu, weren't you acting all tough earlier? Did you enjoy beating me up? Sun Hao, now you're hiding? Where'd you run off to? Xiaolu did not bother reading. He slipped his phone back into his pocket. 7 days until the Professional Awakener Assessment. 2 paths laid out before him. Head to the front lines or continue schooling. He leaned heavily toward the former. The endless battlefield teemed. Countless alien races were locked in constant warfare. Any defeat there would spill over and endanger their home civilizations, earning it the moniker of the front line. Humans ranked only mid to lower tier among all races in this world. Nations like Eagle Nation and Land of the Rising Sun harbored malicious intentions, constantly launching backstabs that left humanity even more vulnerable. The endless battlefield had endless hordes of monsters to slay. It aligned perfectly with his unique ability. Lost in thought, Xiaolu arrived at the entrance to the Goblin Nest, swarming with newly awakened freshmen bustling about. Parties formed, trade struck, students came and went non-stop. Xiaolu carried a human-tall cardboard crate in one hand. He gripped a rusted battle axe in the other. His bizarre appearance drew stares from everyone around. Whoa, what's his deal? Hauling a crate that big? Did he come here for a camping trip? There's nothing but goblins inside. Does he have some weird hobby? Ugh. I heard a girl got dragged into the goblin nest a few years back. The state they pulled her out in was absolutely horrifying. Goblins attack any living creature without discrimination. Wait, he's heading in alone? Just wait for the news later. Another fool's gonna meet their end in the goblin nest. Xiala stepped into the swirling portal marking the dungeon entrance. The world spun wildly around him. When he opened his eyes again, he stood within a quiet, dense forest, the scent of damp earth filling his nostrils. Off in the distance echoed sneering cackles, mixed with the wails of captured female creatures. This is a dungeon. It's like stepping into an entirely separate world. Xiala scanned his surroundings warily. His current spot was hidden and secure, so there was no risk of an immediate ambush. Far off, he spotted professional awakeners locked in combat. He needed to avoid all of them. He opened the cardboard crate to check that the lifelike human mannequin inside remained intact, then sprinted northwest toward the remote wilderness. A faint, putrid stench hung in the air. The stronger the odor, the closer he drew to the goblin nest, and the greater the danger. Strange, distorted cries drifted over from the distance. Goblins ruled this territory unchallenged. Nearly all native wildlife had either been slaughtered, or they were dragged back to the nest to serve as breeding stock for more goblins. Xiaolu crept up a shaded hillside to observe the goblins' patrol routes. A goblin scouting squad marched past every 30 minutes. If spotted, the squad would summon endless reinforcements. He could not afford to tangle with them. Deeper within the nest stood goblin sentry posts, perched atop wooden watchtowers over 10 meters tall. They would shriek to sound the alarm. They did this at the first sign of intruders. Goblins were inherently distracted by lifelike human figures, so placing the mannequin in a visible spot would pull the sentry's full attention away from their guard duties. Goblin sentry level, LV.3 HP, 800 MP, 300 damage, 12 to 31 skills, farsight, deafening shout description, non-combat units stationed at the goblin nest, blessed with exceptional vision and thunderous voices tasked with raising alarms. Xiaolu surveyed the terrain and singled out a bored, unoccupied goblin sentry. He pulled the lifelike mannequin from his crate and set it in a bush partially concealed by thick foliage. A pale, human-shaped silhouette peeked through. It was impossible for the goblin to miss. Once the trap was laid, Xiaolu ducked into cover nearby, waiting for the sentry to take the bait. The lifelike figure proved far more distracting than he anticipated. Seconds later, the drowsy goblin sentry jolted upright, bulging its eyes toward Xia Li's hiding spot. Its green skin flushed with excitement. Without hesitation, it tumbled off the 10-meter watchtower, losing half its HP to the fall. This dropped it to only 400 remaining. It scrambled on all fours straight for the mannequin hidden in the brush. It's coming. It's coming. Xiaolu gripped his rusted iron axe tightly, his breath quickening as he hid. This would be his first real battle. Only victory would let him snowdrop his stream of divine artifacts. He wondered what rare gear the LV.3 goblin might drop. Roughly 3 minutes passed before Xiaolu heard rustling footsteps. Strange grunts drew near. Here it comes. Xiaolu tightened his grip on the rusted axe and watched a short, green-skinned goblin dart out, rushing straight to the mannequin and fixating fully on the figure, oblivious to surroundings. It was as if the mannequin triggered an unbreakable fixation within its instincts. Seizing the moment, Xiaolu burst from hiding and swung the rusted axe with all his strength at the meter-tall goblin. Green blood splattered everywhere. A damage reading of 21 floated above the goblin's head. The goblin howled in agony, twisting to identify its attacker, yet its fixation on the mannequin rooted it firmly in place. This trap's a perfect hard crowd control effect. It's locked down completely. Xia Li's heart sank at the low damage number. At this rate, it would take ages to land the killing blow. Still, the immobilized goblin made for an easy target. He brought it down once more. Another 22 damage flashed into view. The goblin did not stir an inch. He hacked at it over 24 more times, his arms growing heavy and his palms stinging from the recoil. Finally, the goblin let out a cry. It collapsed motionless atop the mannequin. Congratulations. You have slain the LV.3 goblin sentry using your rusty axe. EXP gained. 500. You have leveled up to LV.2. All base stats plus 5. Xiaolu gasped for air, watching the panel. This was not what he'd come for. 2 seconds later, brilliant golden light erupted from the goblin's corpse. Here it was, what he'd been waiting for. A rod-shaped weapon slowly rose from the glow, identical to their crude clubs. Xia Li's expression turned complicated. Divine artifacts were not dropped randomly. Their form depended entirely on the monster slain and its race. Slaying a dragon versus slaying a lowly goblin would yield artifacts worlds apart in quality. Golden Spiked Club Type. Weapon Usable Classes. Warrior Line Tier. Supreme Divine Artifact Attack Power. 208 to 253 Special Effect. Skull Crush. Striking an enemy's head guarantees a critical hit and stun, with a tiny chance to shatter their skull. It ignores all levels, bosses, and defensive abilities. Special Effect. Subjugation. Attacks have a chance to force targets to kneel and surrender, abandoning all resistance. Ignores all levels, bosses, and defensive abilities. Special Effect. Binding Strike. Every attack lands 100 of the time, cannot be dodged, and interrupts all spell casting channels. Description: a legendary relic of the Goblin race, once the personal weapon of the Goblin King. Looking at these stats, even striking its skull might not take down another goblin in one hit. But its mechanics are absurdly powerful. 100 stun, no matter if it's a regular mob or a boss. I can lock targets. Xia Lu grasped the golden spiked club, its weight settling comfortably in his hands with a perfect heft for swinging. Thick at the top and narrow at the grip, it fit naturally after adjustment. It felt satisfying to wield. I'll hunt more goblins to see what other divine artifacts drop. Xia Lu sent the goblin's corpse flying with a single swing of his club, retrieved the lifelike mannequin, and carried it to the patrol path the squads traveled. He tucked it deep within the underbrush. 5 minutes later, a squad of goblin patrols emerged, ranging from LV.3 to LV.8. Gah! One goblin spotted the pale silhouette in the brush, freezing mid-step and shuffling forward wide-eyed. The other goblins noticed its odd behavior and crowded around curiously. The lifelike figure seized their full attention, rendering them completely immobile, unable to tear their eyes away. Xia Lu gripped the golden spiked club with both hands. He crept silently behind the squad. He raised the club high and smashed it hard against the last goblin's skull. A sharp crack rang out. The goblin patrol soldier stiffened instantly and crumpled to the ground with a thud. A 513 damage value floated upward. Xia Lu landed a second blow square on its head to finish it off. The goblin patrol soldier perished outright. Congratulations. You have slain the LV.5 goblin patrol soldier. EXP gained 800. Another beam of golden light burst forth. This time, the drop was not a club, but a pair of rough leather gloves. Shadow Thief Gloves Type. Armor Usable Classes. Dexterity Focused Professions Tier. Supreme Divine Artifact. Stat Bonuses. Strength plus 100, Dexterity plus 200, Intelligence plus 100, Vitality plus 100. Unique Trait. Ghostly Hands. Each successful strike has a chance to steal one random item from the target, ignoring level gaps, boss status, and defensive abilities. Description: beloved gloves of the legendary Goblin King, who used them to hoard an entire vault of treasure. All-around stat gear. Does the massive stat boost mean it only gets one unique trait? Xia Lu slipped them on. His 4 core stats surged instantly, a flood of boundless power rushing through his body. He felt at least 100 times stronger than before. His agility saw the most dramatic improvement. Movement and reaction speed jumped high. Max HP scaled with vitality, now climbing to 10,000 points. Attack power scaled with strength, granting an extra 1,000 damage. The Golden Spike Club excelled at broken mechanics, while the Shadow Thief gloves delivered raw power. Shala flexed his fingers around the club, brimming with newfound confidence. The remaining goblins remained trapped by the mannequin's distraction, powerless to resist the human-made lure. Xia Lu raised the club and slammed it into the next skull. Bang! Its head burst open like a ripe watermelon. This feeling is incredible. Congratulations. You have slain the LV.6 Goblin Patrol Soldier using your Golden Spiked Club. EXP gained 1,000. You have leveled up to LV.3. All base stats plus 5 golden light flared once more, revealing another rod-shaped weapon. Seriously? They can drop duplicate artifacts. Xia Lu stared in disbelief as the item fully materialized. It was an identical golden spiked club. Now that his stats had skyrocketed, dual wielding was no problem. He swung both clubs in tandem, hammering down on the cluster of green-skinned heads. Thanks to the binding strike effect, the goblins practically walked into his blows. They dissolved into clouds of blood with every strike. Within mere seconds, the 4 remaining goblins lay dead. You have leveled up to LV.4. All base stats plus 5. Truthfully, the minor stat boost from leveling had become meaningless. He possessed no skills and expended 0 MP, so he allocated all future stat points to dexterity for faster movement. For streaks of golden light shot upward from the corpses. 2 more clubs, gloves, and boots materialized. Name: Coward's Evasion Boots type. Foot armor required level. LV.1 usable classes. All tier. Supreme Divine Artifact Defense. 120 to 210 movement speed. Plus 100 special effect. Slippery Retreat. Automatically trigger an 8-meter backward slide upon taking damage. This leaves a pool of slippery oil on the ground that lingers for 5 seconds. Any enemy stepping on the oil is guaranteed to fall prone for 1.5 seconds, ignoring levels, bosses, and defensive abilities. Special effect. Trample the Weak. Stomping enemies smaller than or equal to your size deals triple attack damage. Damage doubles again against prone targets and inflicts a brief stun. Damage quadruples against summons, minions, and trash. Description. Exclusive boots of the goblin coward Snick, who escaped the pursuit of a mighty dragon and evaded an elven army's encirclement. A symbol of endless survival. Coward's Evasion Boots. Xiao picked up the newly dropped boots. He brought them to his nose, breathing in the scent of fresh and used leather. They had never been worn by anyone else. It seems my ability to spawn divine artifacts creates brand new relics from nothing, rather than stealing. Otherwise, wearing footwear once worn by goblins would be revolting. He equipped the Coward's Evasion Boots at once. His lower body felt far more stable, a clear boost to his defense. The boots fit perfectly, custom made for him. They offered far superior traction and terrain awareness than his old sneakers. A phenomenal find. Xiao hopped lightly in place, bouncing as if attached to springs. Only one larger goblin remained in the area. Possessing far stronger willpower, it had resisted the allure of the mannequin and turned its gaze to Xiao, spotting the pile of goblin corpses strewn across the ground. Its pupils constricted, and it let out a shriek. Gah! Goblin Captain level, LV. 8 HP, 2400 MP, 1000 damage, 66 to 83 skills. Heavy Strike, Command Aura Description, Battle Captain of the Goblin Nest, gifted with above-average intelligence capable of adapting tactics against different foes. It clutched a crude spiked wooden club, shabby in comparison to Xia Li's gilded weapon. It screeched and charged forward, swinging its club hard enough to cut through the air with a low hum. Xiao Li charged it head-on. He swung his golden spiked club with brutal force. Crack! The crude wooden club shattered completely, and the golden weapon crashed straight into the captain's face. A sickening crunch of bone echoed out as the face caved inward. It stumbled backward unsteadily before crashing to the ground motionless. Congratulations! You have slain the LV.8 Goblin Captain using your golden spiked club. EXP gained. 3200. You have leveled up to LV.5. All base stats plus 5. A deafening hum followed, and an even brighter column of golden light shot skyward. Xia Li's eyes lit up with excitement. Could a monster's level and rank influence the quality of dropped divine artifacts? 2 seconds later, a ring rose. It was set with a large ruby at its center, radiating priceless elegance. Ruby ring type. Accessory required level. LV.5 usable classes. All tier. Supreme divine artifact stat bonuses. Vitality plus 500, strength plus 100. Special effect. Ruby Pocket Dimension. The ruby gem holds a 10 by 10 by 10 independent storage space with automatic sorting. Storing or retrieving any item takes less than 0.1 seconds. Special effect. Strength Surge. Activate to double stats. It doubles strength and multiplies all damage dealt by 2 for 5 minutes. 3-hour cooldown. Description. A priceless ruby ring once owned by the elven race, stolen by the goblin coward Snick and hidden deep within his vault. What an incredible treasure. A flat 500 vitality boost. That's 50,000 extra HP. Xiao Li's face lit up with delight. He had yet to awaken an official profession, so he could not access any class buffs. All his combat power and abilities came solely from his weapons and armor. Unfortunately, the ring required LV.5 to equip, and he was finally at the proper level. He slipped it onto his finger to wear immediately. The entire Goblin Patrol squad had been wiped out. He now owned 2 extra golden spike clubs and an additional pair of Shadow Thief gloves. If these 3 divine artifacts were put on the market, each would sell high. They would easily net at least a 10 million starting price. Leaving everything else aside, just the 100 stun effect on headshots, effective against both bosses and elite monsters, would make countless factions scramble to buy them up. Farming bosses would become ridiculously easy from then on. You'd only need to send one person to sneak up and land a surprise blow. But selling divine artifacts carries huge risks of exposure. High-level professionals would rush over. They would lock him up and force him to churn out artifacts non-stop. So that path is basically unworkable. Then what should he do with all these extra divine artifacts? Xiaolu narrowed his eyes slightly. He had to come up with a reliable plan. After that, he glanced far toward the goblin nest. Since he'd already come this far, he might as well clear the dungeon first and see what other divine artifacts the goblins could drop. Stowing away all his loot, he looked up toward the depths of the nest. The tunnels of the goblin nest were narrow and damp. Unknown sticky secretions coated the cave walls. A sour, fetid stench hung thick in the air. Holding his golden-spiked club, Xiaolu crept along the cave wall and ventured deeper. A crude sentry post lay ahead. 2 crooked wooden stakes propped up tattered planks, and a scrawny goblin sentry squatted behind them. It was picking its nose while clutching its own foot and letting out contented gurgling noises. Xiaolu crept forward silently. He raised his golden-spiked club and smashed it straight down on the creature's back of the head. Bang! Stun triggered. Before the goblin sentry could even let out a whimper, its skull caved in completely. Congratulations! You have slain LV.5 Goblin Sentry using the golden-spiked club, gaining 1,200 experience points. A beam of golden light shot upward, dropping another large club. Xiaolu already had 2 strapped to his waist. If this kept up, he'd practically be running a bulk artifact shop. But as the sentry fell, its claw accidentally tugged a rope. Jingling. A warning bell strung with bones and scrap metal clanged loudly throughout the cave. Ga! Ga 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 ga. The depths of the cave erupted into chaos in an instant. Shrill screeches echoed from the green-skinned creatures, followed by chaotic footsteps. More than a dozen goblins swarmed out from every side passage. Some wielded wooden clubs, others rusted short blades. All chattering madly as they charged Xiaolu. Leading them were 2 goblin captains, each gripping a nail-studded mace. Xiaolu did not retreat. Dual-wielding his golden-spiked clubs, his fighting spirit blazed bright. Let me test the limits of this gear. Come on. Xiaolu charged straight toward them. His first club crashed against one goblin captain's mace. The golden-spiked club shattered the foe's weapon outright. The unspent momentum slammed into its forehead, crushing its skull. Congratulations. You have slain LV.8 Goblin Captain using the golden-spiked club, gaining 3,200 experience points. You have leveled up to LV.5. All stats plus 5. The Ruby Ring's equipment requirements have been met. Stat bonuses now active. Constitution plus 500, Strength plus 100. Hearing the system prompt, Xiaolu equipped the Ruby Ring without hesitation. A warm current washed over his entire body. He could feel his physique solidify drastically. With 50,000 health points backing him, his breathing steadied at once. He then stowed all the gear hanging from his waist into his spatial storage. The weight lifted instantly. Suddenly, 2 dark figures lunged at him from the sides. Xiaolu slid backward 2 steps, triggering the slippery escape boots oil slick ability. He glided 8 meters backward, leaving a puddle of slick oil on the ground where he'd stood. The 2 goblins failed to halt in time, stepping on the oil and crashing flat onto their backs. They squawked and flailed, trying to scramble back up, yet failing repeatedly. Xiaolu closed in on them. Swinging both golden-spiked clubs, he hammered the fallen goblins relentlessly. With the Ruby Ring equipped, each strike dealt roughly 6,000 damage. He did not even need headshots to crush these goblins with a single blow. Congratulations. You have slain LV.6 Goblin Warrior using the golden-spiked club, gaining 1,500 experience points. Congratulations. You have slain LV.4 Goblin Rock Thrower using the golden-spiked club, gaining 800 experience points. System notifications flooded his vision nonstop. Golden light beams burst from every corpse. Xiaolu had no time to check what each dropped, simply vacuuming all loot into his ruby spatial storage. A dozen goblin corpses lay strewn across the tunnel floor. The last remaining goblin captain spun to flee. Xiaolu gave chase immediately. The gap between them closed rapidly. He brought his club crashing down hard on the green-skinned creature's skull from behind. Bang! The final body hit the ground. Silence finally settled over the tunnel. That was amazing. This batch should have more than a dozen unique divine artifacts. Xiaolu opened his ruby spatial storage, revealing a row of gleaming top-tier divine artifacts inside. There were 8 golden-spiked clubs alone. He really was a bulk artifact supplier now. Shortly after, a brand new leather armor caught his eye. Name, Rogue Warplate Type. Armor, Leather Required Level. LV.5 Usable Classes, no restrictions. Quality, Divine Artifact Supreme Grade Defense. 650, 880 stat bonuses. Constitution plus 500, Agility plus 100 Special Effect 1 Stubborn Resistance. All incoming damage is reduced by 20. There is a chance to negate all damage entirely and reflect it back to the attacker through rule distortion. Special Effect 2, unshakable persistence. When taking fatal damage, the wearer survives with 1 health point for 5 minutes. If any enemy is slain within those 5 minutes, 30 maximum health is restored and the near-death state ends. This effect can only activate once per battle. So overpowered. Xiao couldn't help but marvel. He equipped it without a second thought. Description: one of the Goblin clan's most powerful divine artifacts. It defies all attacks and bends battle rules to its user's favor. Legend says it once infuriated a demon to the point of surrender. Warm energy surged through his veins. His health spiked by another 50,000. He now boasted over 100,000 health points. The next second, boom. Deep within the cave, a massive stone gate crashed open from the inside. A towering figure stepped out of the darkness. It stood 3 meters tall, its body rippling with thick muscle. Its dark green skin was crisscrossed with countless old scars. A crown forged from the skulls of dozens of creatures sat atop its head. In its grip rested a giant bone club thicker than Xia Li's entire body. Its eyes locked onto Xia Lu at last. Goblin King boss level, LV.10 health, 800,000 mana, 30,000 damage, 1,800, 3,500. Skills: War Stomp, King's Roar, Bone Club Crush, Summon Guard's description. The absolute ruler of the Goblin Nest, feared for its cruelty and cunning. Every skull embedded in its crown belongs to a challenger it tore apart with its own hands. The Goblin King spoke slowly, its voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. Human, you slaughtered all my subjects. It tightened its grip on the bone club, thick veins bulging across its arms. I will tear your bones free, grind them to dust, and mix the powder into feed for maggots. On the outer edge of the Goblin Nest, deep within the dense woods, a lone goblin sentry squatted on a tree stump munching wild berries. A blazing sword wind sliced toward the back of its head out of nowhere. It squawked and dodged to the side, yet the blade still carved a deep gash into its flesh. 78 floated above its head as damage. Stung by the wound, the goblin sentry screeched and hefted its crude wooden club to swing at its attacker. Sun Hao had just retracted his sword. Seeing the club barreling toward his face, his pupils shrank. He dove sideways instinctively. He rolled across the muddy ground, yet the club still slammed into his back. Pain shot through his spine. 37 appeared above his head. Damn it! Sun Hao scrambled back to his feet, his ears burning hot. He heard muffled snickering coming from behind him. He spun around and glared, and the noise fell silent instantly. Missing its strike, the goblin sentry bared its rotting fangs and charged again, swinging its wooden club wildly. Sun Hao stepped backward 3 times until his heel struck a tree root, leaving him nowhere to retreat. Gritting his teeth, he gripped his blazing sun's sword with both hands, and golden flames flared higher along the blade. Die! He swept the sword wide, and searing sword energy swallowed the goblin whole. 88, 83, 85. A string of damage numbers popped up one after another. Sun Hao leaned on his sword, gasping for breath for several moments. Only after confirming the creature was dead did he slump against the tree in relief. See that? He planted his blazing sun's sword into the ground, tilting his chin high. I took it down with a single strike. Soloing a goblin. This is what real strength looks like. Mozi Face rushed forward first, holding out a water bottle with both hands. Young Master Sun is unstoppable. That dodge, that counterattack, smooth and flawless, a textbook solo clear. The tall, lanky boy quickly gave a thumbs up. Absolutely. That goblin was at least level 5 or 6, and young Master Sun only just awakened, yet nearly fought it without taking a scratch. No one else in Linhai City has talent like this. Enough flattery. Sun Hao waved a hand and pulled out his phone to record a video. Students of Linhai No. 1 High School, watch closely. The camera panned over the goblin's corpse before cutting back to his arrogant face. I soloed this goblin. 1 slash, and its head nearly split open. This is what an S-rank talent looks like. He paused, his grin turning cold and meaningful. 7 days from now, during the professional awakening exam, someone better not run. Even if they do, they can't escape me. And don't forget his aunt. I always keep my word, neither of them gets away. He sent the video. The class group chat exploded instantly. Whoa, young Master Sun soloed a goblin already? It's only the first day. The Blazing Sun swordsman is terrifying. Us average players are still practicing on training dummies. You know who I'm talking about, right? Daring to cross young Master Sun, he's asking for trouble. Mozi Face sent 3 messages in a row. Young Master Sun soloed and instantly killed a goblin with almost no damage taken. True S-rank combat power. The top genius of Linhai No. 1 High. Argue with me if you dare. Xiaolo, you there? Come see how powerful your brother's son is. The tall, lanky boy replied right away. At Xiaolo, where are you hiding? Did you already run off? Ha ha ha, he wouldn't dare come back. Young master's son could crush him with one finger now. Xiaoli's phone buzzed non-stop, vibrating rapidly. He frowned and glanced at it. Just as he expected. Sun Hao had killed a single goblin and was celebrating wildly in the class group chat, not missing a chance to mock him. Still, soloing a goblin put him above 99% of new professionals. The ruby ring glinted, and Xiaolo stowed his phone into spatial storage. He lifted his gaze to face the Goblin King standing before him. The monster stared darkly back. At 3 meters tall, it was a giant among goblins. It was hard to imagine how it coexisted with the tiny lesser goblins. Either way, there was nothing left to do but fight. Xiaolo clenched his right fist, and the ruby ring glowed bright red. Strength amplification, activate. Crimson light flowed from his fingertips, rippling outward across his entire body. A scarlet aura edged his skin and armor. Xiaolo flexed his fists. The doubled strength surged through his muscles like electric current. Dual-wielding his golden-spiked clubs, he charged straight at the Goblin King. This boss had 800,000 health points. It would still pose a genuine challenge for him. The Goblin King roared, sweeping its massive bone club forward with crushing force. Xiaolo did not duck or dodge, meeting the blow head-on with his own club. The golden-spiked club and bone club collided mid-air with a teeth-rattling crash. 16320 floated above the king's head. Shaken by the impact, the Goblin King stumbled 2 steps backward, a flicker of shock crossing its scarlet eyes. Wait a moment, human. Let us call a truce. Fear flashed in the king's small eyes. It huffed and puffed, scrambling to beg Xiaolo for mercy. I offer you a gift, stop attacking me. As it spoke, it pulled a pale white crystal from its chest. Intricate ancient runes were carved across its surface. The pale white crystal hovered suspended above its palm. The Goblin King began to chant. A string of guttural ancient words echoed through the cave. Torch flames flickered violently, and the cave walls hummed and trembled. A suffocating wave of oppressive pressure spread through the cavern. Huh, this goblin really thinks it can trick me? Xiaolo tilted his head and muttered in amusement. He raised his right hand, reaching out with an empty grasp toward the crystal. The shadow steel ability of the Shadow Thief gloves triggered. An intangible shadow arm stretched forth soundlessly, moving at blinding speed. It snatched the pale white crystal and retracted instantly. Xiaolo stared down at the crystal in his palm and smiled. Rune crystal type. Consumable item description. Holds an ancient rune within its core. Using it can summon immense power to bolster the user, and it holds many other mysterious uses. The Goblin King's chant cut off abruptly. It stared blankly at its empty palm, frozen stiff as if its brain had short-circuited. Ugh, it's hot. Thanks for the gift. Xiaolo held up the rune crystal and waved it at the Goblin King with a grin, before tucking it directly into his ruby spatial storage. You. The Goblin King snapped out of its daze, eyes bulging to the size of marbles, and let out a furious shriek. That is mine. Give it back. You thief. Robber. Vile human. Hand it over at once. You have no idea what power this holds. The king's tone softened, urgent and pleading. Return it to me, and I will let you leave unharmed. I swear it. Its gaze brimmed with desperate entreaty. You're not being sincere enough. Xiaolo shook his head faintly. Hearing this, the Goblin King forced a strained smile onto its fleshy face. It slowly hunched its 3-meter frame to appear smaller, softening its voice into a shrill, placating tone. Human warrior, noble human warrior. It shuffled forward a small step, dropping its bone club to the ground. It held both empty hands out wide to signal harmless intent. I misjudged you. You truly stand worthy of fighting me. Listen, my treasure vault holds countless rare treasures. All of them yours if you return that crystal. Let us forge an alliance. What do you say? It blinked its scarlet small eyes, straining to put on a genuine-looking expression. Xiaolo stood motionless, golden-spiked clubs in hand, watching it closely. The king crept closer and closer, its hideous green face nearly pressed up against Xiaoli's own. I swear by the entire goblin clan. Xiaolo suddenly raised his golden-spiked club and smashed it toward the ugly green face. The king jerked its head aside, and the club slammed hard into its shoulder. It howled in pain and stumbled backward. 16383 floated above its head. Insolent human, you dare to deceive me. The Goblin King flew into a towering rage. It lifted its massive right foot and stamped it hard against the stone floor. War stomp. Boom. The ground shook violently outward from its paw. A visible shockwave exploding in all directions. Stones rained down from the cave's ceiling. The stone slabs beneath Xia Li's feet cracked, and he staggered unsteadily. This was an area hard crowd control effect. The damage itself was low, but it locked him in place completely. At that moment, the Goblin King gestured behind its back. Sharp squawks echoed out immediately. 7 or 8 goblin archers emerged from the shadows, perched on high rock ledges. They gripped crude short bows strung with beast sinew, their arrowheads coated in dark green venom. Ga ga ga! A hail of arrows poured down like locusts. Xia Lu recovered from the stun just as the green arrow storm bore down on him. He activated the slippery escape boots oil slick without hesitation, sliding 8 meters backward, leaving a puddle of slick oil in his original spot. 7 or 8 poison arrows slammed into the stone where he'd stood, their shafts vibrating wildly. 2 more arrows struck his chest, bouncing harmlessly off the rogue warplate, leaving only faint white scratches. The armor's damage negation effect fully absorbed the impact. Kill that human. The Goblin King roared out orders, bending down to retrieve its bone club. Its 3-meter body hunched into an awkward, lumbering curve. Xia Li's gaze locked onto its round, exposed back of the head, his mind instantly made up. No one could resist taking a swing at a target like that. The movement boost from his slippery escape boots turned him into a fleeting shadow. He closed the distance in 3 long strides and leaped into the air. Raising the golden spiked club high above his head, he brought it crashing down onto the round green skull. Bang! A dull, resounding crack echoed through the cavern as club met bone. The blow snapped the Goblin King's body rigid, and it crashed face first onto the ground. 32842 floated above its head. Its eyes rolled back into its skull, stunned unconscious. Xia Lu hefted his 2 golden-spiked clubs and planted his feet firmly in a wide stance. He rained blow after blow onto the green skull beneath him, swinging left and right without pause. His clubs wove a glinting net of golden light, every strike landing dead center on the same spot. 33450, 32230, 34900, 34300. Dense strings of damage numbers floated upward nonstop. The Goblin King's skull caved in more and more with each blow, its massive body twitching violently under the relentless hammering. Ga! Ga ga ga! The goblin archers could not speak human tongue. When they saw their king on the brink of death, they let out hideous shrieks and loosed their arrows. Poisoned arrows whistled down all around Xia Lu. Their aim was terrible, every shot narrowly missing his body. At last, one poisoned arrow stuck into Xia Li's frame. But there was a sharp hiss as the arrow ricocheted away, flying straight to bury itself in a goblin archer's forehead. The goblin jerked backward and crashed flat to the ground. The other goblin archers stared on in sheer horror. Your rogue armor has reflected damage and slain a level 7 goblin archer. EXP gained 2,700. What just happened? Felt like a light tickle. Xia Lu muttered under his breath, then kept smashing the Goblin King's skull over and over with his staff. He struck countless times without pause. The Goblin King perished. Congratulations. You have slain the level 10 boss Goblin King using the golden spiked staff. EXP gained 150000. Rewards obtained. Heavy Bone Club Blue Grade ×1. King's Plate Armor Blue Grade ×1. You have leveled up to LV.6. All stats +5. You have leveled up to LV.7. All stats +5. You have leveled up to LV.9. All stats +5. 4 levels in one go. A never-before-seen golden pillar of light burst upward from the Goblin King's corpse. The pillar stretched 2 meters wide, slamming into the cave ceiling before spilling outward in all directions, illuminating the entire nest as bright as daylight. The remaining few goblin archers squeezed their eyes shut against the blazing radiance. Screaming in terror, Xia Lu watched the golden beam with keen interest. Just as I suspected, boss drops far superior divine artifacts compared to ordinary monster loot. The golden pillar held steady. A towering heavy longbow, as tall as a full-grown man, slowly rose vertically from the glow, hovering directly before Xia Li's eyes. Its frame was twisted from an unknown dark green hardwood, shaped like 2 gnarled vines coiled together. 7 skulls of varying sizes were embedded along the vine joints, each socket blazing with faint emerald will-o'-the-wisp fire. The bowstring was a thick thumb-sized beast tendon pulled taut, faint dark red veins like patterns flowing beneath its surface, mimicking living blood vessels. Name: Bow of 7 Writhing Hatreds. Type: Weapon. Longbow. Equip level requirement: LV.9. Usable classes: Archer, Ranger, Hunter, and similar professions. Quality: Supreme Divine Artifact. Attack power: 3,200 5,500. Special effect 1. 7-fold hatred. While charging a shot, the 7 skulls light up one after another. Each lit skull boosts damage by 50, capping at a 350 damage increase. Range and all base stats receive the same scaling bonus, alongside 7 additional debuff effects: Curse, Piercing, Heart-Rending, Nightmare, Weakness, Entangle, Soul Drain. Charging shots places heightened physical strain on the wielder. Special Effect 2, Heart-Seeking Pursuit. Once you lock onto an enemy's heart while aiming, any arrow fired will automatically home in on their core, ignoring distance, physical barriers, and defensive skills until it strikes its target. On hit, the target gains a 5-second Tormented Heart debuff, racked with agonizing pain and sustained heavy damage, and cannot receive any healing effects for the duration. Special Effect 3, Vengeance. When the wielder takes damage, this skill triggers automatically. 3 skulls ignite instantly without needing a charge, firing a counterattack arrow at the attacker. Lore forged from the remains of Greek the Vindictive, the most bitter archer in goblin history. This bow was crafted using the skulls of 7 of the clan's most powerful warriors. It seethes with lingering resentment and deadly curses. Beware its backlash. Xiaolu flipped the bow of 7 writhing hatreds over to examine its reverse side. The 7 skulls on the frame all seem to swivel their empty sockets toward him, their ghost fires flickering wildly. This thing is absurdly powerful. Damage can jump all the way up by 350, plus 7 terrifying debuffs to stack on foes. He glanced at the blue-grade gear dropped by the Goblin King and scoffed at the gap in strength. Reaching into his ruby ring storage, he pulled out the Heavy Bone Club for comparison. Name: Heavy Bone Club. Type: Weapon, Bludgeon. Usable classes: all warrior lineages. Quality: blue-grade. Attack power: 3560. Special effect: attacks carry a 5 chance to trigger heavy blow, boosting that strikes damage by 50. Lore: a crude club carved from a troll's thigh bone, used by the Goblin King in his younger days. Its surface is scarred with countless tooth marks. Once he acquired finer weaponry, he tossed it into a pile of junk, occasionally grabbing it to crack open walnuts. Xia Li's gaze shifted back and forth between the 2 weapons. Then he shook his head faintly. The power gap is astronomical. Still, I can sell these common blue-grade pieces for at least 100,000 coins. It'll tide me over through my current cash shortage. Who would have guessed he owned a stockpile of divine artifacts in the game, yet was penniless in the real world? Xiaolu sighed and shook his head again. Suddenly, a sharp whistling cut through the air, an arrow slamming into his rogue armor. This time, his health ticked down slightly. 79. Xiaolu glanced at the faint white scratch across his chest, then looked up toward a rocky ledge high on the cave wall. 4 goblin archers crouched there, cackling triumphantly. Whoom! The bow of 7 writhing hatreds trembled violently. The first 3 skulls along its frame lit up simultaneously. The bowstring tautened on its own, untouched by any hand. A thick emerald arrow, 3 times larger than standard arrows, materialized out of thin air. Special Effect 3, Vengeance. Activated. No charge required, no aiming needed. The bow swiveled its frame of its own accord, string fully drawn and ready to fire. Xiaolu loosened his grip lightly. Whoosh boom. The arrow streaked away as a blazing emerald streak the instant it left the string, tearing the air with a deafening crack. The 4 goblin archers didn't even have time to scream. The arrow pierced straight through the first archer's chest, sending a spray of green blood flying, then punched through the second, the third, before pinning the 4th firmly to the cave wall. 4 green-skinned corpses strung together like candied haws, their limbs twitching weakly. A 4-man one-shot kill. Every single wound pierced straight through each target's heart. Congratulations. You have slain a level 7 goblin archer with the bow of 7 writhing hatreds. EXP gained 2,700. Congratulations. You have slain a level 6 goblin archer with the bow of 7 writhing hatreds. EXP gained 2,100. Congratulations. You have slain a level 8 goblin archer with the bow of 7 writhing hatreds. EXP gained 3,500. Congratulations. You have slain a level 5 goblin archer with the bow of 7 writhing hatreds. EXP gained 1,500. You have leveled up to LV 10. All stats plus 5. 4 thin golden light beams shot upward from the fallen goblins' bodies, dropping loot. 2 golden spiked staffs, a set of rogue armor, and a pair of coward's evasion boots. It looks like I've cleared out every goblin here. No more new divine artifacts dropping. Any unclaimed relics from this nest must have stayed with the boss. Xiaolu sorted through the divine artifacts stored inside his ruby ring storage, mulling over his next move. Wasting time hunting down a full set of goblin gear wasn't worth it right now. If he spent that same time hunting a dragon, the artifacts it dropped would outclass the entire goblin set combined. But all these spare divine artifacts left him with a major problem: what to do with them. If word got out, it could bring catastrophic danger down on his head. After weighing every option, Xiaolu settled on reaching out to his aunt. She worked as a government staff member. Though her rank was modest, she had far more connections and official channels than he did. No matter what happens, I'll head home first and give her a few of these artifacts. They'll let her defend herself. I punched Sun Hao earlier, and that guy holds grudges fiercely. He'll never let this rest. Outside the goblin nest, at the edge of the dense woodland, Sun Hao leaned on his scorching sun sword atop a protruding rock, chest heaving with heavy breaths. 3 goblin corpses lay crumpled at his feet, their wounds charred black from his fireblade. See that? He swiped sweat off his face and jerked his chin toward the tree lean behind him. 3 goblins taken down by me alone. A boy with a pockmarked face hurried forward to flatter him. You're incredible, young Master Sun. At this pace, we'll reach the nest entrance in no time. Obviously, Sun Hao flicked green goblin blood off his blade, his gaze fixed on the dark cave mouth ahead. This so-called goblin nest is nothing to an S rank like me. Once I wipe it out, no one in our class will dare look down on me ever again. As for Xiaolu, he's probably hiding somewhere, shaking in fear right now. I'll let him stew for a couple days, then come settle our score properly. How dare he lay a hand on me? Wait a minute. A tall, lanky boy frowned and pointed toward the nest entrance. Young Master Sun, look over there. There are piles of goblin corpses by the cave mouth. Looks like someone's already fought their way deep inside. Sun Hao followed his pointing finger. Several goblin sentries lay scattered by the entrance. Their skulls caved in with brutal force far cruder than anything his scorching sun sword could do. Someone fought their way into the goblin nest. The pockmarked boy stared in disbelief. Who could be that strong? We've been clearing monsters out here this whole time and haven't seen a single other player go in. Sun Hao's expression darkened instantly. Only new awakened trainees dared enter the goblin nest dungeon. He was an S-rank scorching sunsword master. How could some random newbie beat him to the punch? Nonsense. He let out a cold laugh and slung his sword over one shoulder. I'm the only S-rank in this year's cohort at Linhai No. 1 High School, and I'm still stuck clearing outer mobs. Who else could possibly get inside before me? No other trainee is worthy enough. But all those dead goblins. Keep killing monsters. Sun Hao cut him off, raising his voice sharply. They're just a few sentries. The goblins probably fought each other in an internal brawl. There are hundreds of goblins inside the nest, plus a level 10 boss. No solo player could clear this dungeon. Are you suggesting it's the head of the Awakened Professionals Guild? The second he finished speaking, another underling stretched out a hand toward a side path cutting through the woodland. Voice thick with confusion. Young Master Sun, is that Xiaolu over there? Every head snapped toward the trail at once. A lone figure stepped out from a secondary exit of the goblin nest, clad in dark green scaled armor that glinted faintly in the dappled tree light. Slung across his back was a massive heavy longbow as tall as a man, 7 skulls embedded in its frame burning with wispy emerald ghost fire in their empty eye sockets. The entire figure shimmered with soft magical radiance from head to toe. Holy hell! The pockmarked boy's jaw dropped open. What gear is he wearing? Every piece glows with enchantment light. That can't be Xiaolu. Sun Hao ground the words out between his teeth. That good-for-nothing failed his class awakening ceremony. He's not even qualified to step foot in a dungeon. Don't waste time staring at whoever that is. Stay focused and keep hunting. The next second, a system announcement echoed inside every person's mind simultaneously. Global dungeon announcement. The Goblin King boss has been slain. The Goblin Nest dungeon has been fully cleared. The Goblin Nest will reset in 10 minutes. All players inside will be forcefully teleported out upon reset. Please prepare accordingly. Sun Hao froze completely, stunned rigid. How is this possible? I'm an S-rank professional. Who could possibly be faster and stronger than me? At the dungeon exit, a flash of white light flickered. Xiaolu stepped through the teleport gate. Every piece of his goblin divine artifact gear glowing softly. His appearance instantly drew every pair of eyes on the plaza. There was no avoiding it. The radiant light emanating from divine artifacts was impossible to ignore. Groups of new trainees scattered across the square, all twisted around to stare. Who's that guy? Look at his armor. What great equipment is that? I've never seen anything matching it in the official equipment codex. It's glowing all over. Every piece has enchantment light. At minimum, a rank quality, right? Is that a row of skulls mounted on the bow slung over his back? There's actual ghost fire burning in their eye sockets. Wait a second. Could he be the player who just killed the Goblin King from the announcement? The Goblin King? That boss with 100,000 health points? He took it down alone. A tide of hushed whispers washed over the plaza. Many trainees pulled out their phones to secretly snap photos. Several girls who'd just exited the dungeon covered their mouths, eyes blown wide with shock. A well-dressed young woman stepped forward, ready to strike up a conversation. But Xiaolu gently stepped past her without stopping. Why isn't there an option to hide equipment enchantment effects? Xiaolu frowned faintly. His coward's evasion boots activated instantly, and he vanished down the street in a blur of motion. The trainees who'd just lifted their phones stared at the empty space where he'd stood seconds prior. He wove through 2 side streets and confirmed no one was following before pulling out his cell phone and dialing a number. Ring, ring, hello, Xiaolu. His Aunt Lu Shiyu's voice came through the line, faint street noise humming in the background. Xiaolu let out a quiet breath of relief. Auntie, are you all right? Silence hung on the line for 2 beats. I suppose not entirely. Lu Shiyu's tone turned grim. Ever since I finished work and left the government office this afternoon, I've had a strange feeling I'm being watched. A black sedan's been parked on the street corner, and it trailed me for 2 whole blocks when I walked home. I swear someone's been staring at me from inside. Xia Li's brows drew tight with worry. Where are you right now? Near the public market. There are crowds everywhere, so they wouldn't dare make a move out in the open. Lu Shiyu paused, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Don't stress over me, Xiaolu. I work for the government. They can't act openly against me in public. The real danger is you. You punched Sun Hao, and his father runs the Black Tiger Professional Guild. I asked a co-worker to dig up information just now. The Black Tiger Guild's been negotiating a major partnership with the municipal government lately. Their influence stretches much further than it used to. I already know. Let me handle this matter. Lu Shiyu's tone turned firm all at once. Tomorrow I'll go speak with Section Chief Li. He's got old connections within the City Awakened Personnel Administration Bureau, and I'll ask him to mediate a truce. If that falls through, Xiaolu, we can always move to another city and start fresh. I've saved up enough wages over the years to cover a new home somewhere else. Those words made Xia Li's throat burn with emotion. Ever since his parents passed away, his aunt had been the only person supporting him. Her monthly salary barely topped 5,000 yuan, yet she poured nearly half of every paycheck into taking care of him. Now she was willing to abandon her stable, long-term career just to keep him safe? He could never let that happen. We don't need to move. Xiaolu said firmly. What? Auntie, I have something to give you. Something that can keep you alive if trouble comes. Silence fell over the phone line for several seconds. Then Lu Shiyu's voice came through, half amused and half worried. What kind of life-saving item could a high school student possibly have? Xiaolu, have the dungeon battles rattled your head? Don't go trying to solve this on your own. I already have a plan sorted out. Auntie. Xiaolu leaned back against the brick wall of the alley, brushing a finger lightly over the ruby embedded in his storage ring. Think of it as a reward I earned after a successful awakening ceremony. Head home and wait for me. I'll show you what I've got. You mysterious boy. Lu Shiyu sighed softly. Fine. I'll finish picking up groceries and head straight back. Hurry home yourself. Don't wander around outside. All right. Got it. After hanging up, Xiaolu opened his class group chat. Messages had piled up to 99 plus. He scrolled upward to see page after page of unheard voice messages, all sent by Sun Hao. With the full backing of the Black Tiger Guild, which housed dozens of high-level awakened professionals, Sun Hao had endless means to target him and his aunt. A single word from his family could spell ruin for the two of them. The only solution was to deliver these life-protecting divine artifacts to his aunt as soon as possible. The stalkers wouldn't dare strike while she was inside the government office building. The vulnerable window would be when she left work each evening. If anyone made a move, these artifacts would let her escape safely. With that thought weighing on his mind, Xiaolu quickened his pace toward home. Apartment 303, Happy Homeland Residential Complex. Xiaolu pushed open the worn metal security door. The living room lamp was switched on, an old standing fan whirring back and forth, pushing cool air through the room. A half plate of sliced watermelon sat on the coffee table, next to a glass of lemonade half finished. His Aunt Lu Shiyu was curled against the sofa armrest, her long legs stretched out comfortably. She wore a simple white camisole top and light gray cotton shorts, her calves bare from the knee down. Her hair was still slightly damp, draped loosely over her shoulders. A tablet rested on her lap, and she chewed slowly on a popsicle, scrolling idly across the screen with one hand. She lifted her head the moment she heard the front door open, her eyes crinkling into warm crescents. Well, look who's home, my young master. Lu Shiyu hopped off the sofa barefoot and hurried over to Xia Li's side. Xiaolu glanced away bashfully at the sight of her relaxed, casual clothes. Living with such a warm, attractive aunt always left him flustered. He spotted a pair of stockings and leather shoes set loosely on the floor near the entryway, and shook his head with a helpless smile. She'd clearly kicked them off carelessly after getting home from work. She really treated their shared home like a completely relaxed private space, without minding her surroundings around him. Hold on a second. What's this armor you're wearing? Did you clear a dungeon and level up? Lu Xiu leaned close and tapped a dark green scale on his rogue armor with her finger. She circled around to stare at the towering longbow slung over his back, the 7 embedded skull's ghost fires flickering wildly, as if tracking her movement. She stepped backward a pace, blinked hard, then leaned in again, her expression shifting from curiosity to total confusion. Wait a minute, didn't you fail your awakening ceremony? She chewed the popsicle stick between her teeth, eyes wide with confusion. How could you even enter a dungeon without a class? And this equipment you're wearing, I've never seen material like this before. The enchantment glow puts it at minimum a rank quality, doesn't it? You didn't waste money renting counterfeit high-grade gear from those sketchy middlemen preying on new trainees, did you? I've warned you about those scams all over the city. Xiaolu bent down, folded the stockings neatly, and lined the leather shoes up side by side on the shoe cabinet by the door. This whole thing's complicated to explain. He closed the shoe cabinet door and straightened up. The job transfer stone did shatter, but I unlocked a personal status panel instead. I can still hunt monsters and level up, just without any class bonuses. As for this gear, he flipped his right hand, and a faint ruby glow flickered. A dark green scale armor materialized out of thin air above the coffee table, hovering a few inches off the surface. The scales covering the armor shimmered with a dim, eerie sheen under the lamplight. A status window popped up in front of Lu Xiu's eyes. Rogue warplate. The popsicle stick slipped out of Lu Xiu's mouth. It clattered onto the floor. A divine artifact. And a top-tier one at that. Good heavens, it gives a straight 500 points to vitality alone. Let me calculate the HP boost. That's at least 50,000 extra hit points. This stat boost is comparable to a second-tier advanced job changer, around level 60 roughly. I can't believe it. Where on earth did you get this piece of gear? Lu Xiu stared blankly, feeling like she was trapped in a dream. Equipment of this caliber would sell for hundreds of millions at minimum, and it was sitting right in front of her. Glancing down at her own C-rank armor, it looked utterly worthless by comparison. It only added a measly 3 points to strength. Trash, plain and simple. Xiaolu pushed the rogue warplate across the table toward her. Thank you. This is what I wanted to show you. Lu Xiu took a deep breath and looked him over with an entirely new gaze. Then she shook her head. You keep it for yourself. This armor can save your life. It'll serve you far better clearing dungeons than it would me. I sit behind a desk all day. This would be a total waste on me. Put it away right now. I already have one set on me. Xiaolu nodded at the matching rogue warplate he was wearing. Lu Xiu's jaw dropped, glancing back and forth between his armor and the one floating on the table. It was true. A top-tier divine artifact like this is enough to spark a bloody fight between small guilds, yet you've got 2 of them. She lowered her voice. And that bow of yours too. How do you keep getting your hands on so many rare treasures? It's like you've got a wholesale supply of divine artifacts. I've never seen anything like it. Xiaolu fell silent for 2 seconds, then pulled out a seat across the coffee table and sat down. Aunt you, I can't talk about what happened. Best not to ask too many questions either. Lu Xiu leaned forward slightly, her tone turning serious. Fair enough. That's the smart way to handle it. I don't know what you went through, and I won't press you if you don't want to share. But you need to understand, your gear sticks out like a sore thumb. Divine artifacts draw greedy eyes from every corner. Forget small local powers like Black Tiger Guild. Even staff from the City Awakener administration would scheme to get their hands on gear this powerful. I've worked in government services for 5 years. I've seen every dirty trick in the book. The better your equipment, the more people set their sights on you. This goes for public officials and underground factions alike, no exceptions. Suddenly, she slapped her palm together and stood up. I almost forgot. I have a title that can mask the visual glow of equipment. Xiaolu lifted his head. A title? A perk for government staff. Lu Xiu swept her hand through the air to pull up her own status panel. Only unlocked after 3 full years working as a grassroots clerk. It doesn't offer any combat stat bonuses, but it hides all luminous effects from your gear. The second she finished speaking, a system notification popped up before Xiaoli's eyes. Player Lu Xiu is sharing the title, Obscure Figure. Accept. Accept. Title equipped. Obscure Figure. Effect. Conceals all visual glow and special effects of equipped gear. Item stats remain completely unaffected. Hidden appearance temporarily drops upon attacking or casting skills, and restores automatically 10 seconds after exiting combat. Description: a necessary mindset for grassroots civil servants. Work steadily, and don't draw unnecessary attention to yourself. Once Xia Lu equipped the title, the radiant glow of all his gears slowly faded away. Eventually, every luminous trace vanished entirely. He looked just like an ordinary handsome young man once more. The striking light of his divine artifacts faded from around his body. That's much better, he nodded in satisfaction. Now he could farm dungeons freely to collect more divine artifacts. He turned to find Lu Shiyu still seated on the sofa. She'd laid the robe warplate across her knees, running her fingers along the etched scale patterns. A grin she couldn't suppress tugged at her lips. Go ahead and put it on, Xia Lu smiled. I've got plenty more where these came from. More? Lu Shiyu's head shot up, eyes blown wide with shock. Xia Lu raised his hand, and the ruby ring on his finger glinted. A dark gold-spiked staff floated into view beside the robe warplate, still radiating the dazzling light unique to divine artifacts. Lu Shiyu gaped, barely processing what she saw. Two more top-tier divine artifacts materialized next to them: Shadow Thief gloves and Hasty Escape treads. For supreme divine artifacts hovered in midair, pulsing with overwhelming power. "Ain't you? Take all of them. They'll keep you safe no matter what comes your way." Lu Shiyu inspected each artifact one by one, muttering to herself. Safe is an understatement. No one would dare pick a fight with me now. Anyone who tries will get taken down instantly. The golden spike staff guarantees a stun on every headshot. Shadow Thief gloves let me steal any item with a 100% success rate. Hasty Escape treads boost movement speed drastically and grant the weakness trample skill. Combined with the damage boost from my healed work shoes, will my attack damage double? Stars practically sparkled in her eyes. She'd never dared to dream of gear this good before. Try putting the armor on first. All right. Lu Shiyu drew a deep breath and slipped into the robe warplate. The armor contracted automatically, molding perfectly to her figure. The moment she finished donning the full set of supreme divine artifacts, her entire aura shifted completely. Colleagues used to call her plain Xiao Lu without a second thought, but now? She looked like a completely different person. Unbelievable. She pulled up her status panel, still half convinced she was dreaming. My HP just broke 100,000? That's higher than the captain of our unit's security team. Wait, even his second-tier advanced job stats don't stack up to mine right now. She looked up at Xia Lu, her eyes shining brightly. I stand a real chance of taking first place in the internal assessment this time. Internal assessment. Xia Lu raised an eyebrow. She smiled and explained. Government Awakener staff have two career paths. The first is administrative office work. You sit at a desk, accumulate seniority, and promotions depend on years of service and performance reviews. That's the route I've been on up till now. It's stable and low risk, but I've hit a ceiling fast. The second track is combat duty. Pass the internal assessment, and you transfer to a combat division with double pay and far higher authority. Back when I was just a C-rank basic warrior with terrible stats, I'd always finish dead last if I joined, so I never considered it. But now, I'm definitely going for it. Good luck taking the top spot, ain't you? You're underestimating me. Lu Shiyu chuckled, looping an arm around Xia Li's neck. With this full set of divine artifacts, if I don't claim first place, I'll sign up for basic retraining all over again. Xia Lu caught a faint whiff of her light floral perfume and nodded slightly. Then his expression turned serious. We need to figure out how to resolve the Black Tiger Guild issue. I've looked into it thoroughly after what happened to you. Lu Shiyu's tone grew grave as well. Sun Hao's father, Sun Dishing, is the guild leader of Black Tiger Guild, a level 68 flaming berserker. He commands over 100 first-tier job changers, with at least 20 core members who've advanced to second tier. A head-on fight is out of the question. Even with our full divine artifact sets, the two of us can't take on an entire guild alone. Sun Hao's run rampant all over Linhai City and never faced any real consequences. After you humiliated him in front of the whole school today, he'll never let this slide without retaliation. His men were tailing me, which means they've already tracked down where we live. It's only a matter of time before they show up at our door. Instead of waiting around for them to strike, we strike first. Xia Lu cut in. Exactly. Lu Shiyu narrowed her eyes. But they outnumber us heavily, so a direct clash will only leave us at a disadvantage. We need to pit opposing forces against each other. What do you mean by that? Xia Lu met her gaze, one eyebrow lifted. Black Tiger Guild's biggest rival in Linhai City is the Bloody Hand faction, led by Zhao Bloody Hand, a level 70 shadow assassin whose strength matches Sun Dishing evenly. The two guilds have fought over the dungeon entrance in West District for years. Just last month, they clashed over a boss monster. Black Tiger Guild lost 2 members, and Bloody Hand faction lost 3. Our department handled the official internal report filed about the incident. We just need to fan the flames a little, and they'll tear each other apart. Xiaolu paused to think it over. We'll need a powerful lure to spark a full-scale conflict. One single divine artifact will be more than enough. The golden spiked staff would work perfectly. Its guaranteed headshot stun makes it invaluable for boss fights. Neither guild could resist such a treasure. We can't act suspiciously. We'll carry on as normal in public. Once the perfect opportunity arises, we'll seize the advantage while they're distracted by each other. Lu Shiyu clenched her fist as she spoke. Xiaolu nodded. His aunt had years of experience navigating office power struggles, and she'd grown sharp and resourceful because of it. Early the next morning, Xiaolu slowly opened his eyes. He sat up in bed and rubbed his eyes. Breakfast's on the table. Drink the soybean milk while it's hot. I'm heading to work. Lu Shiyu called from the entryway, dressed in an OL pencil skirt uniform. She wore black stockings and heel dress shoes. Grabbing a file folder from the shoe cabinet, she waved it at Xiaolu. I've already turned in my registration form for the internal assessment. The review process starts today. I'm also planning to anonymously leak some information to stir up trouble, and I'll follow up on that at work today. What about you? What's your schedule for today? Keep clearing dungeons to level up. All right, she nodded, her heels tapping lightly against the threshold. Stay safe. Don't venture into high-level dungeons yet. Your level's still low. Take things slow and steady. Got it. The front door clicked shut. The sound of her heels faded down the hallway. Xiaolu sat on the edge of the bed for a moment and yawned. He finished the soybean milk, stuffed steamed buns into his mouth, and pulled up the full list of local dungeons while chewing. A long list of dungeons surrounding Linhai City lined up, sorted from lowest to highest level. The Goblin Warren sat at the very top, marked cleared, with a small line of text underneath. Refresh countdown. 5 days, 23 hours. He scrolled further down. Level 5 to 12, Gloomy Thicket, Monsters, Cat Demons. Xiaolu mulled it over. Cat demons possessed extremely low intelligence and only attacked with claw swipes. The odds of them dropping anything resembling a divine artifact were slim, far worse than goblins, who were at least a sentient, organized race. He skipped this dungeon entirely. Next, level 5 to 15, Spider Nest, Monsters, Spider Beasts. Slightly better than cat demons, as they hunted in swarms and their boss likely held basic intelligence. But the gear they dropped would still be weak, inferior to goblin loot. Another skip. Level 5 to 18, Bloodwolf Woods, Monsters, Wolf Packs. He had no interest in fighting wild beasts. Skip. Level 5 to 20, Sunken Ruins, Monsters, Merfolk. Merfolk could drop some great divine artifacts. Xiaolu rested his chin in one hand, deep in thought. Merfolk were a sentient race tied closely to ancient sea myths, so their dropped gear was bound to be powerful. He didn't have an underwater breathing skill yet, but he could hunt a merfolk monster to obtain one later. This dungeon was a keeper. He kept scrolling, the list growing shorter. The remaining dungeons either had far too high level caps or featured unappealing monster types. When he reached the bottom of the list, a name caught his eye at the very end. Level 10 to 25, Serpent Marsh, Monsters, Swarm of Serpents. Serpents share bloodline origins with dragons. Could this mean? Xiaolu's eyes lit up. Serpents were considered the primitive precursors to dragons. Within the evolutionary hierarchy of monsters, serpentkind and dragonkind descended from the same ancient bloodline. If he hunted serpents, could he loot dragon-themed divine artifacts? Xiaolu thought it was well worth testing. But he was only level 9 right now, not yet high enough to enter level 10 Serpent Marsh. He'd start with Sunken Ruins first, farm merfolk for rare gear. East coast of Linhai City, entrance to the Sunken Ruins dungeon. Salty sea wind washed over Xiaolu as he stood atop a rocky shore. Stretching out before him was an endless stretch of ocean, white foam churning beneath a gloomy sky. Wave after wave crashed against the jagged rocks. The most striking sight sat roughly 200 meters out at sea, a massive whirlpool spinning slowly in the water. That marked the entrance to Sunken Ruins. The sandy beach bustled with activity. Dozens of Awakener players clustered in small groups. Some set up makeshift stalls selling underwater breathing potions and waterproof scrolls. Others posted recruitment notices to form dungeon parties. Ugh, we wiped again to those merfolk. The boss's whirlpool spell is ridiculous. It swallows half the party in one surge. Hey buddy, your group still has an open spot? I'm a C-rank water mage. No combat penalties underwater. C-rank water mage? Get over here, we've been short a damage dealer this whole time. Underwater breathing potions for sale. 3,000 gold each. 30 minutes of underwater air. The official dungeon shop sells them for 5,000. This is a steal. Buying merfolk scales in bulk, 20 gold per stack, long-term buyer. Xiaolu jumped down from the rocks onto the sand. His goblin divine artifacts were hidden by his title, so the other players couldn't spot his rare gear. He wandered slowly along the beach, glancing over the potions and scrolls laid out at stalls. Breathing potions cost 3,000 gold each, waterproof scrolls 2,000 gold apiece. All party recruitment listings required a minimum level of 12, some even demanded level 15. Xiaolu first found a stall to sell his 2 spare blue-grade pieces of equipment. Prices ran steep near the dungeon entrance, and he earned over 150,000 gold total. "Hey man, need a potion?" A tall, lanky vendor sidled up, waving a vial of bright blue liquid. "Last 3 bottles left. I'll cut you a deal, 2,800 each, 30 minutes of unrestricted underwater breathing guaranteed. You can't even step foot in the dungeon without this stuff. The whirlpool drags you into an underwater labyrinth. You'll suffocate before you reach the inner ruins without air." "No thanks." Xiaolu stepped past him. "Wait, hold on, 2,500. 2,500, all right? Don't be cheap. This is a life-saving item. You can't skip out on it." The lanky vendor hurried after him, calling out, 2,500? Yeah, I'll take one." Xiaolu glanced back and bought a single underwater breathing potion. Even though he planned to farm divine artifacts from merfolk later, it was better to play it safe for now. After pocketing the potion, he pulled up the dungeon's detailed information panel. Dungeon, Sunken Ruins. Level restriction, level 5 to 20. Monster type, merfolk tribes. Boss, deep sea merfolk priest. Dungeon scale, medium recommended party size, 4 to 6 players. Special restriction, all combat takes place underwater. Underwater breathing tools or skills required. Xiaolu had just finished reading the dungeon details when a commotion erupted on the beach. He turned to see more than a dozen figures marching toward the sand, all wearing matching black uniforms embroidered with tiger stripes. They walked with arrogant swagger, kicking over a small vendor's stall without hesitation. The vendor scrambled to gather his scattered goods, too intimidated to argue or protest. Leading the group was a burly bald man with a snarling tiger tattoo covering his left cheek. He slung a giant broad-bladed battle axe over one shoulder. Level 42nd tier berserker, a Black Tiger Guild badge pinned to his chest. The dozen Awakener players behind him all ranged from level 30 to 35. Black Tiger Guild claims this dungeon. The bald man drove his axe deep into the sand, his fierce gaze sweeping across the crowd. "Sunken Ruins is ours for the day. You've got 10 minutes to pack up and clear out. Anyone still lingering once the time's up won't get mercy from my axe." The beach fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted into murmurs. One player opened his mouth to shout a complaint, only for his teammate to clamp a hand over his mouth. Others silently folded their recruitment signs and turned to leave. Damn it, what's Black Tiger Guild doing all the way out at the East Coast? Their territory's supposed to be West City. Haven't you heard? Their precious young master Sun Hao awakened an S-rank class. They're here to guard him. Sun Hao's probably arriving soon to hog all the dungeon experience for himself. This isn't fair. Why does he get exclusive run of the whole dungeon? Sigh, there's nothing we can do. If he were a weak nobody, we could file a formal complaint. But he's an S-rank awakener. Higher authorities will just turn a blind eye. We'd better leave fast before we get caught up in trouble. If Sun Hao grows stronger with that S-rank class, Black Tiger Guild will become even more untouchable. Nothing we can do. This is just how the world works. Players whispered among themselves. Vendors packed up their stalls. Dungeon parties disbanded. Black Tiger Guild members spread out to block off every path leading to the dungeon's whirlpool entrance. Xiaolu frowned. He ached to crack every single one of their skulls with a well-placed blow. Their arrogance was unbearable. Still, he held back his temper. Aunt Yu's plan to pit Black Tiger against Bloody Hand faction was the smarter long-term play. That said, if he crossed paths with them deep inside the dungeon, he wouldn't show any mercy whatsoever. With that thought in mind, he headed straight for the dungeon entrance. A young man standing nearby stared in shock and grabbed his arm to pull him back. "Hey, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? That's the way to the dungeon entrance." Xiaolu glanced back at him, yanking his arm free and walking forward. His shout drew quite a few onlookers' attention. What a waste, throwing his life away for nothing. Is this guy out of his mind? He's only LV.9 and dares to clear the Sunken Ruins dungeon alone? Even I'm LV.14 and got beaten black and blue by the murlocs in there. Leave him be. Let's go quick. Hu Biao's looking this way. One of Hu Biao's lackeys frowned and leaned in to whisper something in his ear. Who's that kid? The one in the gray coat, LV.9. No clue. Looks like he's got a death wish. Boss, should we drag him back? Hu Biao shot a blank stare at Xia Li's retreating back and waved a hand dismissively. No need. A useless LV9 trash. He's probably suicidal and heading straight for the whirlpool. Drowning him will save us the trouble. But inside the dungeon, the whole dungeon's full of our men. What do you think he'll accomplish once he's in there? You think he can fight the Murlocs? He can't even beat a single Murloc sentry. He's just walking to his death. Xiaolu climbed onto a reef and glanced down at the swirling whirlpool. He pulled out a potion vial, twisted off the cap, and drained every last drop in one gulp. A thin, cool layer seemed to settle over his lungs, refreshing and crisp. He bent over, dove head first, and plunged into the whirlpool. The world spun upside down as raging currents swept him deeper and deeper. Xiaolu felt as if he'd been trapped inside a spinning washing drum, his body completely out of his control. After roughly a dozen seconds, the current suddenly opened up ahead. Xiaolu flailed his limbs forward. His back crashed onto a stretch of damp, sandy shore. You have entered the dungeon. Sunken ruins. A notification popped up before his eyes. Xiaolu lay flat on his back, gasping for breath. The Sunken Ruins dungeon was perilous right from the entry point. The ocean was a force that inspired deep awe. Shing, 2 streaks of golden light flashed into existence. A pair of golden-spiked clubs materialized in his hands. The 7 Regrets heart-piercing bao hung slung over his back. From his past dungeon experience, the spawn point was always a safe zone. He stood up and scanned his surroundings. The sky overhead was a murky, dark green, as if he'd stepped into a separate hidden realm. The beach was dim with poor visibility, thick with a briny, rotten stench hanging in the air. The seawater churned far more violently than ordinary seas. Waves crashed against the reefs, sending sprays surging several meters high. Races tied to mythological backstories really are something else. The whole dungeon landscape shifts to match them. Xiaolu muttered to himself as he turned to survey the area. He saw no sign of the Black Tiger Guild members. But atop the black reefs at the far end of the beach, a Murloc squatted, hacking away at something with a blade. Its body was covered in dark green scales, with a dorsal fin stretching from the nape of its neck all the way down to its tailbone. Its face was a grotesque blend of fish and human features, and it gripped a rusted curved cutlass in its webbed claws. Murloc, grunt level, LV.15 HP, 5500 damage, 13720 skills, agility, brutal strength description, a common low-tier Murloc that crafts and wields crude tools. It possesses an extremely sensitive sense of smell, especially attuned to the scent of blood. When spotting lone prey, it lets out shrill cries to summon allies, so engaging one alone is not advised. This little creature's truly hideous. Since it's all by itself, I'll test my strength on it first. Xiaolu eyed the Murloc and couldn't help complaining. The beast radiated unbridled ferocity. He gripped his dual golden spiked clubs, crept along the black reef lining the sand, and slowly closed in on the Murloc. His cowardly escape boots muted nearly all sound as his feet pressed into the damp sand. The Murloc remained hunched over, its cutlass rising and falling as it chopped relentlessly. Suddenly, it halted its hacking motion. It tilted its head upward, as if listening intently to a faint sound. Its dorsal fin shot straight upright, and bony spines lining its spine flared out one by one. It twisted its head slowly, its bulging fish-like eyes locking rigidly onto Xiaolu. Such sharp senses? Xiaolu raised an eyebrow, disappointed his planned sneak attack had been spotted. A shrill scream split the quiet shore. The Murloc leaped off the reef, launching itself toward him like a cannonball. It raised its rusted cutlass high overhead and swung down in a brutal slash. Activate passive, slip away. The special effect of the cowardly escape boots triggered instantly. Xiaolu slid backward 3 meters, carving 2 deep furrows through the sand with the soles of his boots. The Murloc's cutlass struck nothing but empty air, burying its blade deep in the wet sand and sending a spray of grit flying. Before it could yank its weapon free, Xiaolu planted his feet firmly. He twirled the golden spiked clubs above his head and brought one crashing straight down onto the scaled fish skull. Clang! A sharp metallic ring echoed out. The Murloc's head lurched violently downward, its neck bending at an unnatural, jagged angle. Its bulging eyes rolled wide in their sockets, and it collapsed rigidly onto the sand. A damage value of 16,239 floated above its corpse. No critical headshot damage procced. The Murloc's skull and torso are fused together, hard to tell where the weak point is. I'll aim a little higher next time. Xiaolu muttered in mild surprise. He'd aimed directly for its head after all. Congratulations. You have slain LV.15 Murloc Grunt with the golden spiked club. Experience gained. 8,000 you have leveled up to LV.10. All stats +5 right after the notification. A thin stream of golden light shot skyward from the Murloc's body. Unlike the rough, thick golden light left by goblins, this beam was slender and soft, filled with countless tiny bubble illusions that bubbled upward nonstop. The golden radiance slowly condensed, revealing a trident-shaped weapon suspended within the mist. Could this be the legendary weapon everyone talks about? Xia Li's eyes lit up, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. He hadn't expected a top-tier legendary drop from the very first Murloc he killed. He admired the trident closely, growing fonder of it by the second. Its frame was forged from some kind of deep-sea black iron, tinted a deep indigo blue. 3 carved golden sea serpents coiled upward along the handle, their jaws stretched wide, each facing one of the 3 trident prongs. The 3 prongs were asymmetrical. The central tip was razor-sharp, while the 2 side prongs curved gently inward. Tiny sapphires embedded along the metal glinted like scattered deep-sea fish scales. A fist-sized dark blue gemstone was set into the end of the handle, faint illusions of rising and falling tides swirling endlessly inside the jewel. Name: Trident of the Sea God type. Weapon equipable level, LV. 10 usable classes: Warrior, Mage, Priest, Warlock, and all other combat classes quality. Supreme Divine Artifact attack power. 1/3 stat bonuses. Intelligence +1000, Spirit +1000, Constitution +1000, Agility +1000. Special Effect 1, Tide of the Sea God. Swinging the trident automatically unleashes a fan-shaped tidal shockwave, dealing 6-fold magic damage to all enemies within a 20-meter forward radius and inflicting a 3-second levitation debuff. Levitated targets cannot move, attack, or cast spells. Passive ability: ignores enemy size, boss status, and all defensive shield skills. Special Effect 2, Edict of the Deep, active skill. Summon 3 elite deep-sea beasts to fight alongside you for 120 seconds. Random summons include Tiger Shark Riders high-mobility assault units, Abyss Giant Crabs area crowd control and frontline tanks, and Thunder Jellyfish long-range lightning spellcasters. The sea beast stats scale with the wielder's intelligence, and their level will never drop below the wielder's current level. Cooldown: for hours. Special Effect 3, Ocean Bond. The wielder is completely unaffected by water pressure, violent currents, and limited underwater vision in any aquatic environment. Permanent underwater breathing, 300 increased movement speed while submerged. All water elemental spells deal 100 extra damage. All incoming water elemental damage reduced by 60, and the wielder gains the ability to manipulate surrounding water currents. Passive Aura. All ocean creatures hold instinctive reverence for the wielder. Even hostile sea life will not initiate combat unprovoked. Lore. This trident was forged from the spinal column and deep-sea sapphires of Neptunus, the first Murloc king known as the Lord of Tides. Neptunus once single-handedly quelled 1,000 years of raging tidal chaos in the Abyss Trench. On his deathbed, he sealed his full power within the trident and entrusted it to the Murloc clan for eternal safekeeping. Legend states that whoever can lift this trident shall be the true ruler of the deep ocean. Ancient Murloc script is carved along the inner handle, reading: "The sea refuses no rivulet, the king refuses no humble life." This thing's completely overpowered. Xiaolu reached out and gripped the trident's shaft, a heavy, icy cold seeping into his palms. He traced the carved golden sea serpents and swung the weapon twice experimentally. Fine mist trailed off the prongs as they cut through the air. At the same time, the once terrifying, churning ocean no longer felt threatening. It felt familiar, as if he could command every wave with a single gesture. An idea crossed his mind. He lifted the trident skyward. A spectacular sight unfolded before him. Seawater surged upward out of nowhere, erupting into a colossal fountain. His golden spiked clubs were officially obsolete. Even on dry land, the trident of the sea god far outmatched them. This was the legacy of the ancient Murloc race. Just then, commotion echoed from a distance. He twisted his head to look. Behind the cluster of reefs, flashes of steel glinted. Members of the Black Tiger Guild had apparently gotten into a fight with Murlocs. Xiaolu looked away and strode toward the open deep sea. Surging waves rose to form a staircase of flowing water, carrying him forward. The trident of the sea god is absolutely incredible. Stepping into the ocean feels like returning home. Xiaolu sighed with genuine wonder. Divine artifacts were truly in a league of their own. This single weapon outshone even SSS tier class exclusive gear. He raised the trident of the sea god once more. Waves surged to his command, solidifying into a moving water platform beneath his feet. He stood atop the crest of the tide, wind whistling past his ears as the shore shrank farther and farther away, boundless ocean stretching out on all sides. Notably, the raging waves calmed the instant they drew near him, as if deferring to their master. After traveling several thousand meters, a sunken vessel came into view on the sea's surface. It was an ancient wooden warship roughly 100 meters long, tilted sideways and half buried amid jagged reefs. Barnacles and thick seaweed coated every inch of its hull. This wreck served as the Murloc's main encampment. Murlocs squatted across its deck, hull railings, and even the horizontal spars of its masts. These Murlocs were far bulkier than the lone scout on the beach, their scales shimmering a deep navy blue. Many finer details were impossible to make out from afar, yet their senses remained razor-sharp. They spotted Xia Lu riding the tide while he was still hundreds of meters away. Dozens of bulging fish eyes locked onto his form all at once. In the next heartbeat, panic rippled through their ranks. They recognized the weapon in his grasp, the sacred artifact of the Murloc kings. Chaos erupted across the sunken ship's deck. The Murlocs fell into a frenzy of terror, horrified that their sacred trident had fallen into human hands. Moments later, the crowd abruptly fell silent and split apart to make way for a figure stepping forward. A Murloc shaman clutching a coral staff, its scales stained a dark crimson, radiating overwhelming menace. Xia Li's eyes lit up at the sight. From past experience, higher-tier monsters dropped far more powerful divine artifacts. What rare gear might this Murloc shaman yield? Murloc shaman level, LV.18 HP, 32,000 damage, 33051 skills, curse, water barrier, summon school of fish description, a powerful elite among Murloc clans, wielding rudimentary deep-sea witchcraft. Its intelligence far surpasses ordinary Murlocs, and it can communicate with deep-sea creatures using ancient Murloc tongue. Cruel to all foes, it shows no mercy even to its own kin. The Murloc shaman halted at the edge of the ship's railing, its bulging fish eyes fixed unblinkingly on the trident in Xia Li's grip. It opened its jaws and let out strange, gurgling syllables, and to Xia Li's surprise, he understood every word. Human, why do you wield our clan's sacred artifact? This is sacrilege. You cannot wield its power. Hand it over at once. It took one heavy step forward, slamming its coral staff against the wooden deck and pointing a webbed fin straight at Xia Lu. Return the sacred trident, or you shall be cursed by the deepest malice of the ocean. Schools of fish will gnaw your flesh, seaweed will bind your bones, and your soul will be trapped eternally beneath these waves, never to glimpse sunlight again. The main dungeon boss must be hidden deep inside the hull. I'll cut my way through step by step. Xia Lu paid no mind to the shaman's threats, only mentally mapping out where to begin his assault. The Murloc shaman flew into a rage. It lifted its coral staff, firing a streak of sickly emerald light straight into Xia Li's chest. Xia Li's stomach twisted violently the second the beam made contact, a wave of nausea rolling over him. You have been afflicted with the Murloc shaman's malicious curse. Steady your breathing. Dizziness and nausea are standard side effects. Duration. 5 minutes. No stat penalties were applied. The curse existed solely to hinder his movement and focus with unpleasant sensations. I wonder if there are curse-focused divine artifacts out there. I'd love to lay this same debuff on Sun Hao sometime. As Xia Lu fought off the queasy sensation, the water beneath his feet exploded upward. 3 Murloc assassins burst out of the waves, leaping several meters into the air. Each clutched a rusted cutlass, their blades aimed for Xia Li's lower back, nape, and the crook of his knee. They had lain hidden underwater this entire time, waiting for the curse to impair him before striking. TCH, they even coordinate ambushes together? Xia Lu tightened his grip on the trident and swept it horizontally beside his body. Seawater bent to his will, pulled along by the motion of the artifact. Before the assassin's cutlasses could brush the hem of his coat, churning tides dragged them back under the surface, locking them in place with complete crowd control. Xia Lu sliced the trident forward in a horizontal arc. Compressed seawater built up along the prongs erupted outward, forming a 20-meter-long blade of surging tide that swept forth in a wide fan. A shrill tearing sound split the air as the water cleaved through everything in its path. The 3 Murloc assassins didn't even have time to scream before their bodies were sliced clean in two. 13942 4 148,423 1432 89 3 staggering damage values floated above the churning sea. Congratulations. You have slain LV.14 Murloc Assassin with the Trident of the Sea God. Experience gained. 6,500 congratulations. You have slain LV.15 Murloc Assassin with the Trident of the Sea God. Experience gained. 8,000 congratulations. You have slain LV.13 Murloc Assassin with the Trident of the Sea God. Experience gained. 5,200. Right afterward, 3 separate streams of golden light shot upward from the ocean's surface. Xiaolu knew more divine artifact drops were coming. To block any outside eyes from peeking at the loot, he raised the Trident of the Sea God and summoned towering walls of seawater to obscure the surrounding area. Only faint golden glimmers could be seen through the translucent liquid barrier. The golden radiance faded, and 3 pieces of equipment slowly materialized from the mist. The first was a full suit of armor in vivid turquoise blue. Hundreds of scale-shaped crystal plates wove together to form its surface, flowing streams of glowing blue energy swirling within each shard like endless tides. Name: Blue Tide Armor Type. Armor: Heavy Plate Equipable Level. LV.10 Usable Classes: Warrior, Knight, Guardian, and other frontline tank classes. Quality: Supreme Divine Artifact Defense Rating. 2,0 stat bonuses. Constitution plus 800, Spirit plus 500, Strength plus 300, Max HP plus 100,000. Special Effect 1, Purge of the Tides. The wearer gains complete immunity to all negative status ailments, including poison, curse, bleeding, scorch, freeze, paralysis, confusion, fear, and silence. Whenever a negative status is blocked, a stack of Purifying Surf is gained. Once 3 stacks accumulate, a purifying shockwave automatically erupts, clearing all debuffs from all allies within 20 meters and restoring 10 of their maximum HP. Special Effect 2, Ripple Domain. A tidal aura automatically generates within a 30-meter radius around the wearer. Every 10 seconds, a tide cycle triggers. On the rising tide, all enemies in range are dragged 8 meters toward the wearer and slowed by 50. On the falling tide, all enemies are blasted outward 10 meters and stunned for 2 seconds. The pull and knockback distances are halved against boss-tier creatures, but the stun duration remains unchanged. The wearer may toggle this aura on or off at will. Special Effect 3, Blue Sea Resonance. The wearer passively regenerates 2 of their maximum HP every second. HP regeneration doubles when health drops below 50. If health falls beneath 20, the passive Blue Tide Surge activates instantly, restoring 50 of total HP and quadrupling all regeneration effects for the next 15 seconds. This effect can trigger a maximum of once every 10 minutes. Lore: this armor was forged from the shed scales of Windine the Azure Scale, the 3rd Tide Shaman of the Murloc clan, fused with deep sea tide crystals. Windine was the only shaman in Murloc history to reject the crown of kingship, devoting her entire life to healing and protection. Legend tells she plucked every scale from her own body before her passing, sealing them within tide crystals to craft this armor for those who would rather shield others than fight, yet are forced to take up arms to protect what matters most. The Goblin Artifact Coward's Plate Armor can't hold a candle to this. Forcing enemies into your range with tides beats stumbling backward to flee any day. Xia Li's face lit up with excitement. The divine artifacts dropped by Murlocs were on an entirely different level, or the Goblin race's gear was simply far inferior by comparison. Without hesitation, he donned the Blue Tide armor at once. A refreshing, soothing warmth washed over his entire body, and the lingering nausea from the shaman's curse vanished in an instant. The extra 100,000 maximum HP stat filled him with unshakable confidence. The second drop was a pair of tall greaves covered in fine scale textures, fin-like protrusions extending out from either calf. Item name: Abyssal Strider's Type. Armor Boots Equipable Level. LV.10 Available Classes: Archer, Ranger, etc. Quality: Legendary Supreme Defense. 1,600 2,900 stat bonuses. Agility plus 700. Stamina plus 400. Movement speed plus 25. Special Effect 1, Abyssal Submersion activate manually. A bottomless ocean trench fissure instantly forms beneath your feet, dragging you and the fissure down into an independent dimension called the Abyssal Void, separated from the physical world. While inside the Abyssal Void, you cannot be targeted, damaged, or detected for up to 10 seconds. You may resurface early at will, emerging either at your original position or any body of water within a 50-meter radius. Cooldown: 2 minutes. If your original spot is occupied by an enemy when you resurface, The Abyssal Void swallows that foe and deals physical damage equal to 200 of your stamina stat. Special Effect 2, Trench Evasion triggers automatically upon taking damage. Your body shifts into a translucent ink blue wraith form for 1 second, immune to the triggering hit and all incoming damage and crowd control effects for that duration. After activation, a 5-meter wide black abyssal mark lingers underfoot for 8 seconds. Any enemy stepping on the mark falls into the abyssal void and takes damage equal to 200 of your stamina stat. Cooldown, 15 seconds. Special Effect 3, Call of the Deep Dweller manual activation summons a deep dweller from the abyssal void, a terrifying creature native to the dark ocean depths. The deep dweller persists for 60 seconds, possessing 150 of your total stats. It wields 2 abilities, Tidal Bind, Tentacle strikes root targets for 3 seconds, and Abyssal Roar, 15-meter radius fear. Foes who fail there will check fall into confusion for 3 seconds. Summon limit, 1 creature at a time. Cooldown, for hours. Lore: the Abyssal Void is the fishfolk's darkest secret. They share an unbreakable, ancient bond with the deep dwellers. Some even say the fishfolk crawled out of that void themselves. Their memory of the origin faded over countless generations. Now the terrifying bloodline flowing in their veins begins to awaken. Can you sink into that abyssal void, then sneak out for surprise attacks later? It's just like Uchiha Madara from Naruto, and you can summon a deep dweller to fight alongside you. Those beasts are absolutely fearsome. Xia Li's heart stirred, and he slipped on the abyssal striders at once. A swirling vortex tugged faintly at his soles. He only needed a thought to sink straight down. The strange pull beneath his feet felt far eerier than the goblin escape boots. The third piece of gear was a helmet. Forged from matte deep-sea alloy, it bore a streamlined, teardrop silhouette. Its mirror-smooth surface reflected the faint outline of anyone's face, lending it a distinct sci-fi aesthetic. Item name: Trench Helm Type, Armor Helmet Equipable Level, LV.10 Available Classes, Warrior, Knight, etc. Quality: Legendary Supreme Defense, 1800 2700 Stat Bonuses, Intelligence plus 700, Stamina plus 500, Perception plus 25. Special Effect 1, a deep sea mimicry activates automatically once the faceplate slides down. A mimic aura wraps around your body, altering your appearance and aura to match your surroundings for perfect stealth. You emit 0 detectable aura, heat, or mana fluctuations in any terrain. Camouflage breaks temporarily when you unleash a heavy attack or take damage, and restores automatically 15 seconds after exiting combat. Additionally, you may copy this camouflage effect onto up to 2 allies within a 5-meter radius. Cooldown, 10 minutes. Special Effect 2, Ocean Sonar active once the faceplate lowers, granting sonar sight. A blue rippling hologram inside the visor displays the position, movement path, HP bar, and weak points of all hostile units within a 200-meter radius around you in real time. Stealthed, invisible, shape-shifted, and disguised enemies are highlighted with stark red warning markers. You gain full immunity to all blind, illusion, and visual deception effects. Passive bonus: every 100 points of intelligence expands the sonar detection radius by 10 meters. Special Effect 3, Wide-range mental barrier upon closing the faceplate. A mental shielding layer forms inside the visor, granting complete immunity to fear, confusion, charm, hypnosis, mental control, memory probing, and all other mind-based attacks and debuffs. When struck by a mental assault, pale blue ripples spread across the helmet's surface, locking onto the attacker's mental signature. For the next 30 seconds, all damage you deal to that target rises by 20. The foe also remains brightly highlighted on sonar sight, ignoring any invisibility or disguise they use. Lore: this helmet was forged from unknown alloy recovered from deep ocean fissures, its creator lost to time. Fishfolk ocean scholars once uncovered a ruin at the bottom of the Abyss Trench, unrelated to any known civilization. Its stone walls were carved with complex data runes and holographic anatomical diagrams of deep-sea leviathans. A line of ancient fishfolk script was cold-etched inside the helmet, a tribute to the ruins' inscription: "Wear this, and gaze upon stars in the abyss." Truly, the fishfolk are a myth-tier race. They dropped 4 unique legendary items in a single haul, no duplicates at all. If these were goblin foes, we'd never get such rare loot. Xiaolu stared at his newly outfitted gear, unable to hold back his amazement. Thanks to the equipment level, the stat bonuses were unbelievably generous. Profile name: Xiaolu class, None level, LV.10 stats, Strength 808, Agility 1057, Intelligence 907, Stamina 2210 HP, 2,210,000 mana, 1,057,000 equipped gear, Trident of Poseidon, Shadow Stealer gloves, Ruby ring, Tidal Surge plate armor, Abyssal Striders, Trench helm title. Unremarkable hides, all equipment special effects skills, none. Just the Supreme Legendary gear alone pushed his HP past 2 million. His mana topped 1 million too. No one would believe these stats belong to a mere LV. 10 character. Legendary gear easily bridges the gap left by missing classes and combat skills. Not that it mattered. He now wielded the power of a fishfolk, and the strongest variant at that. Now I've got all the legendary gear I need. Time to start hunting. Fishfolk, let me see how far your strength extends. He lifted the trident of Poseidon high. The towering seawalls surrounding him crashed down on his command. As mist cleared, Xiaolu stood atop the rolling waves, reborn with his new gear. Clutching the trident of Poseidon, his turquoise armor shimmered with flowing tidal light. Standing at 1.8 meters tall with a sturdy, powerful frame, he cut a figure akin to Poseidon descended to the mortal sea. The fishfolk aboard the sunken ship erupted into panic. Ga! Ga ga ga! The fishfolk priest shrieked in terror, stumbling backward. The rest of the fishfolk descended into total chaos. Their entire worldview shattered in an instant, their minds thrown into disarray. Should they obey their shabby-robed priest, or the foe draped head to toe in divine relics before them? Why you? Who are you? The fishfolk priest's voice shrilled, every word trembling with fright. The sacred trident of my clan, the tidal saint armor, and the shackles of Gorga. How did all these end up on you? What creature are you? Xiaolu shot him a cold glance, then raised the trident of Poseidon overhead. Fraud pretending to lead my kin. I am the true heir of the fishfolk bloodline. I declare war upon your faction. Fishfolk priest. Fishfolk warriors. We've been disowned by our own clan. The whole situation felt deeply off. In the next heartbeat, 3 towering water spouts exploded from the sea surface. From the leftmost spout charged a tiger shark rider, cutting through the dark waves. His 5-meter striped shark mount glowed pale white fluorescence beneath the water. The rider, a tall, athletic fishfolk wraith with long gills flaring on either cheek, rested a bone lance across the saddle, crackling arcs of electricity dancing off the tip. Tiger shark rider type. Summon elite deep sea beast roll. High mobility assault stats. Inherits 150 of the summoner's total attributes. Skills. 1. Tidal charge. Movement speed plus 200. Knocks all enemies along the charge path airborne. 2. Bone lance thrust. Single target piercing strike. Ignores 30 of target defense lore vanguard of the deep sea cavalry regiment, riding tiger shark mounts that earned countless victories in ancient ocean wars. Their spirits lingered long after death, bound to answer the call of the trident of Poseidon. The rider hovered beside Xiaolu atop the waves, his gaze sharp and menacing. From the center spout, an abyssal crab clambered up from the reefs beneath the waves. Its 8 segmented limbs spanned a full 10 meters wide, its 2 pincers larger than life rafts. Thick coral and sea anemones coated its shell, its twin compound eyes perched on tall stalks that creaked with every turn. It looked every inch a sea leviathan. Abyssal crab type. Summon elite deep sea beast roll. Area crowd control tank stats. Inherits 200 of the summoner's total attribute skills. 1. Giant pincer crush. Deals area damage to all foes in a forward fan shape and roots targets for 3 seconds. Abyssal carapace. Reduces all incoming damage by 60. And deals thorn damage to any melee attacker who strikes at lore overlord of the abyssal reef zones. Its pincers strong enough to snap iron ship anchors. Stubborn to its core, once it locks onto a target, it will never let go unless its claws are severed. On the far right, a thunder jellyfish rose slowly from the seawater. Its translucent bell stretched over 3 meters wide, dozens of long tentacles dangling beneath it, each tipped with a glowing orb that crackled with static. Thunder jellyfish type. Summon elite deep sea beast roll. Ranged lightning mage stats. Inherits 150 of the summoner's total attribute skills. 1. Storm cloud. Summons lightning over a designated zone, dealing continuous area damage and paralyzing all foes caught within 2. Whip tentacle. Single target range strike with plus 50 critical hit chance. Lore native to the thunderous depths of the ocean, feeding on raw lightning and wielding that same power as its weapon. The 3 deep sea leviathans spread out in a fan formation, floating on either side of Xiaolu. The fishfolk priest's legs shook uncontrollably. He spun around and scrambled back into the sunken ship's altar chamber, slamming into the stone walls in his haste. Off to summon a powerful boss. This was exactly what Xiaolo had waited for. If regular fishfolk dropped such powerful legendary gear, the elite and boss variants would surely yield even greater rewards. Moments later, rapid guttural chants in ancient fishfolk echoed from the altar chamber. The chamber exploded outward in a shower of rubble. A claw covered in dark golden scales stretched through the wreckage, webbed membranes taut between its splayed fingers. The grand fishfolk priest stepped slowly out, every bone in his frame creaking as he moved. He lifted his heavy eyelids, for golden irises blazing with venomous malice. Grand fishfolk priest, Gormag level, LV.20 boss HP, 1,350,000 attack damage, 4,328, 5,529 skills. 1. Abyssal Tidal Wave. Summons a massive wave to wash across the battlefield, dealing area damage and knocking all targets backward. Serpent Bind. Unleashes 6 water element sea serpents from his staff to bind and constrict foes. 3. Ancient Curse. Places a single target curse that lowers all stats by 30 for the full duration of combat. Altar Resonance. When HP drops below 20, awakens ancient fishfolk spirit warriors slumbering within the altar to fight alongside him, lore 5th generation Grand Priest of the Fishfolk. 300 years of slumber faded his scales from dark green to dull gold, and forged a temper as brutal as the crushing pressure of the abyss trenches. Gormag leaned heavily on his coral staff as he stepped onto the ship's deck. He lifted his head, for golden eyes locking straight onto Xiaolo. Then he froze. The human before him held none other than the trident of Poseidon. Every carved golden sea serpent detail on the trident's hilt matched the relic he remembered perfectly. The rest of the man's armor radiated the unmistakable aura of sacred fishfolk treasures as well. His pupils narrowed in shock and disbelief. What had happened during his 300 years of slumber? Had the fishfolk fallen this far into ruin? He snapped his gaze to the trembling junior priest beside him, who flinched and hunched his shoulders in confusion. He had no answers either. After several long seconds, the shock and reminiscence faded from Gormag's golden eyes, replaced by poisonous fury. He slammed his coral staff hard against the wooden deck. Dark golden ripples spread outward from the staff's base. Every fishfolk's dorsal fin shot rigidly upright as the ripples washed over them, their scales flaring blood red. A bloodthirsty madness seized the horde, erasing all rational thought. They would tear the intruder apart at any cost. All fishfolk warriors. Gormag's voice sliced through the air, shrill and venomous. Capture this human by any means necessary. Reclaim our sacred relics. The fishfolk aboard the sunken ship let loose a mountainous wave of shrill roars. One by one they dove off the hull, twisting their bodies to dart swiftly beneath the waves, forming a dense swarm of dark green fins cutting across the ocean surface, a terrifying sight to behold. Simultaneously, the fishfolk spear throwers hurled bone spears in perfect unison. 30-plus spears whistled through the wind, all streaking straight for Xiaolo. Xiaolo curled his hand through empty air. Tidal surge. Circling water ripples surged forward to meet the bone spears, scattering every projectile in a single collision. Torrential rain poured down from the sky, blurring all sight. But the visor of Xiaoli's trench helm blocked the disturbance entirely. The sonar sight inside the visor projected every enemy's position in real time before his eyes. 30 fishfolk assassins had already slipped beneath the waves at his feet. Their curved blades aimed for his ankles, knees, and calves. Xiaolo stood firm atop the crest of a wave, pointing the trident of Poseidon forward. The tiger shark rider struck first, activating tidal charge to barrel straight into the group of assassins. His fighting style resembled mounted melee combat, slashing enemies as he charged through their ranks. He cut down most of the assassins in one single pass. Your Tiger Shark Rider has slain LV.15 Fishfolk Assassin, plus 8,500 EXP. Your Tiger Shark Rider has slain LV.12 Fishfolk Assassin, plus 6,500 EXP. You have leveled up to LV.11. All stats plus 5 golden light erupted from the fallen foes. Xiaolo glanced over and spotted multiple duplicate drops, 3 more tridents of Poseidon among the loot. Seems this supposedly sacred trident is far more common than legend claimed. His ruby ring glowed bright, absorbing all the legendary gear into storage. Next came the abyssal crab, advancing like an ocean bulldozer straight for the sunken ship. Bone spears bouncing off his shell could not scratch its defenses at all. This was true unshakable bulk incarnate. Its 2 massive pincers slammed down into the sea with thunderous crashes, sending fishfolk soldiers flying with every swing. That was merely collateral damage. Its true target was tearing the altar ship apart. The thunder jellyfish held back from charging forward, hovering steadily beside Xiao. As a ranged mage, it only needed to hold its position in the rear. Its tentacles unleashed chain lightning that arced between every fishfolk in the horde. TCH, I haven't even lifted a finger yet. Can't believe the horde can't stand up to just my 3 summons. Xiao shook his head in mild disappointment. The Grand Fishfolk priest's eyes bulged in disbelief. These 3 sea leviathans were legendary beasts from ancient fishfolk history. Creatures his ancestors once tamed and commanded as weapons. Now they turned their strength against the fishfolk themselves. Outside the sunken ship ruins, sandy shore. 4 fully staffed squads from the Black Tiger Guild stood upon the beach, all members sitting around LV.30. Hu Biao walked at the head of the group, a half-man tall battle axe slung over one shoulder. Young Master Sun arrives in 10 minutes. He checked his timer and spoke to the squad. Let me make this clear first. This dungeon mission was assigned personally by Elder Sun. Young Master Sun just awakened an S-rank class, and his levels haven't been fully raised yet. Our job is to secure the entire sunken ship ruins, where every fishfolk down to low HP, and leave all the kills for young Master Sun. When he arrives, he only needs to stand aboard the ship and collect all the experience. Any objections? None. The 20 guild members shouted in unison. Lu Hao, take 5 men to clear the shoreline. Once young Master Sun arrives, you lead the welcome party. Don't let any shore fishfolk threaten him. Understood? A tall, thin man nodded, leading 5 guild mates to spread out across the sand. The rest follow me into the water. Hu Biao turned to the remaining fighters. Once we board the sunken ship, split into 3 teams. Team 1 clears the deck. Team 2 sweeps the cabins. Team 3 blocks all underwater escape routes. 0 room for mistakes. Am I clear? Understood. At that exact moment, multiple towering water spouts exploded across the ocean surface, easily visible from the shore, with glowing skill light erupting dozens of meters high. A deep, thunderous crash echoed across the water, as if some colossal beast had slammed its weight against wooden hulls. A young subordinate edged closer, pointing toward the sunken wreck. Tiger Boss, look over there. There's a fight breaking out near the shipwreck. That water column isn't any merman spell. Their vortex art can't stir up such a commotion. Tiger Biao narrowed his eyes, staring hard at the distant sea surface. Those towering pillars of seawater were slowly collapsing back down. Shrill, distinctive cries of merfolk cut through the air. The sickening crack of flesh tearing apart echoed across the waves. Every sound spoke to the ferocity of the battle unfolding ahead. Someone snuck in first. Tiger Biao hauled his battle axe off his shoulder and slammed it against the deck. Must be random solo players who slipped through other entrances while we were clearing mobs earlier. Works for us. Saves us the trouble of wiping all these monsters ourselves. Let them wear each other down. Then we'll step in and clean up everything once both sides are battered. He let out a cold snort. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware the oriole lurks behind. Into the water. Once we climb aboard the wreck, hold your attacks no matter who you see. Wait till they've fought the merfolk nearly to exhaustion before we take everyone out in one sweep. A dozen men simultaneously pulled underwater breathing potions from their robes and drained the vials in one gulp. They followed Tiger Biao and leaped into the ocean one after another. Churning waves swallowed their figures whole. Meanwhile, in Linhai No. 1 High School's class group chat, Sun Hao sent a voice message tagging everyone in the group. At everyone, guys, my grandpa locked down the entire Sunken Wreck Ruins dungeon today, just for me to level up. 20 members of Black Tiger Guild are already inside clearing the area, and I'm heading over right away. Once I grind all the EXP from the Merfolk boss and hit LV.15, everyone will see what an S-rank talent is truly capable of at tomorrow's professional candidate assessment. Zhang Ma replied within a split second. Young Master Sun is insane. Who else in Linhai City could reserve an entire dungeon instance like the Sunken Wreck Ruins? Whoa, booking the whole Sunken Wreck Ruins. Young Master Sun's connections are off the charts. I begged around for days just to get a random pickup group, and we wiped 20 minutes after entering. He just gets the whole dungeon all to himself. You heard him. His grandpa pulled strings to send 20 fully converted class veterans from Black Tiger Guild to clear every mob. 20 high-tier players, all past their first job advancement. Even the sea jellyfish swimming around will dive out of their way. Let me do the math. A full clear of the Sunken Wreck Ruins first run gives roughly 10 whole levels. Sun Hao's already an S-rank Blazing Sunsword Master. If he hits LV.20 before the assessment, there's no competition at all tomorrow. The class chat exploded with messages. Many students from ordinary families watched the flood of compliments, overcome with envy. For them, leveling once a week while grinding monsters was a miracle. This kid got exclusive access to an entire dungeon to shoot up 10 levels in a single day. This world really was ruled by those with power and influence. Sunhao grinned as he read the non-stop stream of flattering comments popping up on screen. Nothing hit quite like being admired by a crowd. At his subtle glance, the lanky subordinate beside him caught the hint instantly. He typed a message into the group without delay. At Xiaolo, where are you? Hiding without posting for 2 whole days. We'll settle scores with you once the assessment wraps up. Sunhao followed up with his own tag to Xiaolo. At Xiaolo, don't think you can brush this off. I haven't forgotten those punches you landed on me before. If you know what's good for you, you know exactly how to make this right. A cold smirk tugged at Sunhao's lips as he stared at the chat window. If Xiaolo had any sense left, he'd figure out what concessions he needed to offer. But even if Xiaolo brought his elder female relative to beg for mercy, Sunhao would never let the matter drop. Boom. The abyss giant crab charged onto the sunken wreck. Its 8 jointed limbs scraped across the sea surface before slamming hard into the ship's gunwale. Rotten wooden planks splintered apart under the force of its pincers, sending the entire vessel rocking violently. Merfolk warriors lining the rail were thrown stumbling every which way. The next instant, one massive crimson claw crashed down on top of them. Your summon abyss giant crab slays a LV.18 Merfolk warrior. EXP gained. 101,000 Your summon abyss giant crab slays a LV.16 Merfolk warrior. EXP gained. 8,500 Your summon abyss giant crab slays a LV.17 Merfolk warrior. EXP gained. 9,500. The Merfolk warriors circled the abyss giant crab with curved blades clutched tight, none daring to charge forward first. The dungeon boss, Merfolk High Priest, stood atop the helm tower. For golden irises locked coldly onto the chaos unfolding below. It lifted its coral staff, the crystal gem atop the shaft blazing with light. The seawater began churning wildly, answering its incantation. Serpent bind of the tides. Several water snake creatures as thick as wooden barrels burst from the roiling waves. They lunged at the tiger shark cavalry charging along the flank, coiling around its tail and pectoral fins beneath the water before heaving its body skyward entirely. The tiger shark cavalry screeched and thrashed, powerless to break free. The sea serpents tightened their coils, digging into its flesh. 12,748, 11,832 damage numbers floated non-stop above its head. Even with stats boosted to 150 of Xiaoli's own, it couldn't sustain such rapid HP loss. The abyss giant crab twisted one eye stalk to glance at the trapped tiger shark cavalry, then huffed and turned back to its own fight. Rivalry among Lord-class summons always played out like this. Several merfolk slipped past the giant crab and scrambled onto the tiger shark cavalry's body, hacking wildly with their blades. The cavalry's health bar plummeted without pause. Xiaolo couldn't stand by and watch. This was one of his own summons after all. He patted the thunder jellyfish, signaling it to lend the tiger shark cavalry aid. Crackle zap. The thunder jellyfish wasted no time, its body flaring bright with electricity. It loosed a lightning chain as wide as a barrel. Swarms of merfolk seized up stiff from the shock and collapsed into the seawater. The sea serpents released their grip, hissing in pain and scattering apart. The abyss giant crab grumbled to itself when it suddenly felt tight pressure wrapping around its legs. It tilted its twin vertical eyes downward. Dozens of sea serpents had snuck up, coiling tight around the joints of its crab legs. It roared and raised its massive pincers to crush them, only for more serpents to surge forward and bind its claws as well. The sea serpents squeezed in unison. The abyss giant crab's colossal frame was dragged flat against the wooden deck, looking like a giant crustacean hauled straight from a seafood market stall. Gah! Gah gah gah! The surrounding merfolk warriors let out wild cries and swarmed forward, hammering their curved blades against its armored shell in a clattering din. The giant crab's compound eyes spun frantically, letting out a shrill cry toward the tiger shark cavalry. The cavalry drifted beneath the waves, its body covered in lacerations left by the serpent coils. It heard the cry, twisted its head to heal its wounds, and ignored the crab completely. These two summons are locked in petty competition with each other. Xiaolo shook his head faintly at the sight. Neither will back down an inch. Thankfully, his strength didn't rely on bonds or loyalty. Raw stat superiority carried all his fights. Just then, ancient guttural merfolk chants echoed across the wreck once more. The merfolk high priest raised its coral staff high. The altar beneath it ignited, 5 dark golden pillars of light tearing straight into the sky. 5 phantom figures of ancient merfolk heroes descended slowly to the deck. They radiated far greater power than ordinary merfolk, their gazes sharp and unyielding, bearing the aura of legendary warriors. The 5 ancient merfolk phantoms landed simultaneously. 3 greatswords and 2 warhammers slammed into the deck, carving 5 deep craters into the wood. They lifted their heads as one, locking their sights firmly on the abyss giant crab. The giant crab's compound eyes blew wide with alarm. It screeched, trying to lift its pincers to counterattack, yet the dozens of sea serpents still locked its joints fast. The ancient merfolk phantoms advanced unhurriedly, their steady steps resembling the ritual march of an old sacred ceremony. They struck in the next heartbeat. A single hammer blow split a massive crack across the crab's shell. All 5 ancient warriors waded in, striking the giant crab from every angle. 13,932, 15,239, 13,984 damage values floated endlessly above the abyss giant crab's head. The merfolk high priest nodded repeatedly as it watched the scene unfold, filled with pride. Its merfolk kin were still undeniably powerful. Oh, more elite monsters. Xia Li's eyes lit up. Summon a few more of these. Elite foes meant far superior divine-grade loot. But the high priest had no further tricks left to unleash. Time to add fuel to the fire, summon their own primordial ancestor to crush them. Deep 1. The sea surface exploded outward. A towering merfolk like being clad in dark emerald flesh stepped out of the churning waves. Every merfolk on deck froze, overcome with dread as they turned to stare at the newcomer. Even the 5 ancient merfolk hero phantoms reacted with visible alarm. Xia Lu was equally stunned. He'd never seen such densely corded muscle across a merfolk-type creature before. Every inch of its frame rippled with thick. This was the Deep 1. Its fish-like face carried the ancient features of a species long predating ordinary merfolk. 6 thick tentacles sprouted from its shoulder blades. It stood upright on the ship's deck, tilting its head slightly. Pale, sickly green eyes stared down at the 5 ancient merfolk phantoms from its towering height. The Deep 1 slowly straightened its tilted head. A bone-chilling cold aura seeped outward to fill every corner of the deck. All surrounding merfolk scrambled backward in blind terror, scrambling over one another to flee. Bulging fish eyes brimmed with unbridled fright and reverence alike. This was their primordial ancestor. This human had summoned the progenitor of their entire race against them. Impossible. How can this be? The ordinary merfolk priests collapsed to their knees with a heavy thud, trembling from head to toe. The dungeon boss merfolk high priest's legs shook uncontrollably, all will to fight vanishing completely in an instant. The Deep 1 moved at last. Its tentacles shot forward like sharpened spears. The webbed 5-fingered claws at each tip snapped shut, clamping tight around the skull of one ancient merfolk hero phantom. The phantom lifted its great sword to counterattack. Blade struck tentacle, leaving nothing more than a faint pale scratch across its scaled hide. 84, 23, 89, 55, 90, 23, the Deep 1's tentacle clenched hard. The ancient merfolk hero's feet lifted off the wooden deck, dragged straight into the Deep 1's towering frame. It thrashed violently against the grip, yet its strength paled utterly beside the Deep 1's overwhelming power. The Deep 1's dual-clawed hands tore the phantom cleanly in two in one brutal motion. The remaining 4 ancient merfolk hero phantoms met the same savage fate one after another. Your summoned Deep 1 slays LV.20 Elite Ancient Merfolk Hero Phantom. EXP gained. 35,000. Your summoned Deep 1 slays LV.20 Elite Ancient Merfolk Hero Phantom. EXP gained. 35,000. Your summoned Deep 1 slays LV.20 Elite Ancient Merfolk Hero Phantom. EXP gained. 35,000. Your summoned Deep 1 slays LV.20 Elite Ancient Merfolk Hero Phantom. EXP gained. 35,000. Your summoned Deep 1 slays LV.20 Elite Ancient Merfolk Hero Phantom. EXP gained. 35,000. You have leveled up to LV.14. All attributes plus 5. You have leveled up to LV.15. All attributes plus 5. You have leveled up to LV.16. All attributes plus 5. All 5 ancient merfolk phantoms wiped out in under 20 seconds from the moment they moved to attack. Xia Li's EXP bar rocketed upward without pause, surging nonstop. Dark, golden beams of light burst upward from the defeated phantom's remains. Xia Li's face lit up. Another batch of divine-grade loot had dropped, and these came from elite, ancient merfolk foes. First drop, a miniature curved blade no bigger than a human palm. Name, Azure Sea Dagger type. Weapon equipable level, LV.15 usable classes, assassin, rogue, and similar stealth combatants. Quality, supreme divine grade weapon attack power, 5,200, 8,400 attribute bonuses, dexterity plus 1,000, strength plus 200. Special effect 1 Eraser Gale. Each strike permanently boosts movement and attack speed by 100, stacking up to 6 layers. At maximum stacks, movement speed receives an extra 300 bonus. All stacks fade gradually over 10 seconds once combat ends. Special effect 2 Deep Toxin. The blade continuously secretes deep sea neurotoxin. Every hit applies the deep blue poison debuff, dealing damage equal to 50 of the wielder's dexterity per second for 10 seconds. Stacks up to 100 layers. Upon reaching 5 stacks, the poison erupts to inflict a paralysis effect. Users may choose to detonate the toxin early or keep stacking layers for stronger burst damage. Special effect 3 U Reverse Scale Razor Active. Activate for 15 seconds. All attacks ignore 50 enemy defense and guarantee critical hits on every strike. Each enemy kill extends the active duration by 5 seconds, capped at a maximum of 30 seconds total. 30-minute cooldown. Description: signature weapon of Zerg the Bone Flayer, the Merfolk race's most legendary assassin. He infiltrated a sacred ritual assembly to slay the second-generation Merfolk king, then slipped into the deep ocean before all assembled priests could react and vanished without trace. Legends claim he escaped pursuit because he swam faster than any curse could chase him. A small line carved into the bone hilt reads, "Those fast enough to outrun danger need no shield. Only a blade swift enough to keep pace with themselves." Every hit stacks a full 100% speed boost. Xiaolu muttered in awe. Good heavens, stack all 6 layers, and I'd move faster than lightning itself. Though, my senses might struggle to keep up. Racing around at that speed would make anyone dizzy. He pictured himself moving at maximum stacked speed, a terrifying image crossing his mind. This dagger wasn't merely built for stealth assassinations, it was a weapon to charge headfirst into battle and cut down swarms of foes outright. Truly worthy of loot dropped from an elite monster, its power even outshone the trident of the sea god by a slim margin. Second divine drop, a pair of gloves. Crafted from translucent deep sea gel, they shimmered with an eerie dark emerald hue. A circular hollow opening sat on the back of each glove, pulsing with soft light as unidentified soft sucker-lined appendages shifted inside. Name: Tentacle Gloves. Type: Armor, Handwear. Equipable level: LV. 15 usable classes: Assassin, Ranger, Hunter, and similar precision combatants. Defense value: 3,400, 5,700 attribute bonuses. Dexterity plus 500, Constitution plus 400. Special effect 1 Tentacle Lash active. Fires a powerful extendable tentacle from the glove's rear socket. Maximum effective range 50 meters. On impact, users may either bind the target or stab it, forcibly dragging the foe straight to the wielder. Targets cannot activate skills during transport and suffer continuous primal scream mental damage that inflicts panic and despair debuffs, bypassing boss immunity and defensive barriers entirely. If aimed at terrain instead of enemies, the tentacle pulls the wielder toward the marked surface. 10-second cooldown. Special effect 2 Death Bind. When an enemy stands within 20 meters, the tentacles unleash a powerful binding grip to pin the target motionless for 30 full seconds. Bound foes cannot move, attack, or cast spells. Once the bind expires, the tentacles retract and siphon 75 of the victim's total HP to restore an equal amount to the glove wearer. Every foe slain while trapped in the bind permanently strengthens the tentacle's power. Special effect 3 U Deep Resonance. For every enemy within a 15-meter radius surrounding the wielder, all attributes rise by 5, stacking up to 10 layers total. At 10 stacks, the tentacles on the glove back triple in length automatically, expanding attack range to 15 meters and doubling tentacle lash's drag speed. Stacks fade one by one as enemies leave the radius. Description: forged from tentacle tissue harvested from an unknown abyssal creature, treated and tanned by forbidden priest Galga. A paragraph detailing the glove's creation process was repeatedly crossed out in Galga's fragmented notes, leaving only one sentence repeated over and over. Never meet its gaze while the tentacles still twitch. Never meet its gaze while the tentacles still twitch. A viscous dark emerald fluid etched a line of script along the glove's inner lining. The abyss granted me a pair of hands, and I shall use them to grasp all the world before me. This is a scaling divine grade piece of gear. Xiaolu exclaimed. Its tentacles grow stronger permanently every time I trap and kill an enemy with the bind skill. But there's a sinister, unearthly aura clinging to it, reeking of cosmic horror energy. Truthfully, Xiala hesitated to invest time leveling its power. Still, it vastly outperformed his old shadow steel gloves. His storage vault overflowed with divine-grade gear these days. Why waste time sneaking to steal loot when he could simply defeat enemies and let them drop powerful equipment directly? Xiala slipped the tentacle gloves onto his hands. A cool, slippery sensation washed over his palms, like donning a layer of living slime. The remaining 3 divine drops were all copies of the trident of the sea god. He already owned more than a dozen identical tridents piled in his inventory storage. Xiala stared at the stack of duplicate sea god tridents, the corner of his mouth twitching helplessly. This weapon was absurdly common as dungeon loot. Xiala frowned as he stared at the warehouse overflowing with divine artifacts. If this kept up, the storage space would be completely full. Rows upon rows of tridents of the sea god lined the shelves, as if they were mass-produced merchandise. The Murlocs would go mad if they saw this sight. These divine artifacts could not be fused with one another, nor could they be casually shown to outsiders. Storing them inside his ruby ring spatial storage ate up too much space. Xiaolu was a perfectionist obsessed with maximizing efficiency. Hoarding so many powerful treasures here felt like a terrible waste. His only viable plan was to rely on his aunt. If she could climb high in the government with the aid of these artifacts, she might turn every one of them into combat strength for the Great Xia Kingdom. Meanwhile, atop the sunken ship, the Murloc forces were nearly wiped out by the Deep One. Xia Lu twirled the azure sea scimitar in his hand, its buttery smooth handle making him itch to test its edge on something. He leaped from the crest of a wave down onto the sunken vessel, where Murloc corpses littered the deck. The Deep One stood before the wheelhouse, 6 thick tentacles hanging loosely at its sides. Galmord, the high priest of the Murlocs, slumped against the wooden hull of the wheelhouse, his coral staff snapped clean in 2 at his feet. For golden pupils in its fish-like head swam with utter bewilderment. How were they supposed to fight this battle? The enemy had summoned their ancient primordial ancestor to the battlefield. Xiaolu scanned the deck and spotted a lesser Murloc priest darting toward an exit, clearly trying to flee. "You'll be the first to test my blade." A faint smirk tugged at Xiaoli's lips. He lifted his left hand, and a thick tentacle shot forth from the back of his palm in an instant. The Murloc priest had only scrambled halfway up a broken gunnel when the tentacle coiled tight around its ankle. It let out a shrill scream and twisted its head, its bulging fish eyes reflecting Xia Li's rapidly approaching figure. The tentacle dragged the entire Murloc across the length of the deck, flinging it to rest right before Xia Li's feet. The edge of the azure sea scimitar pressed against its neck. He sliced the blade sideways across its throat, and deep-sea venom hissed and corroded its scaled skin on contact. The Murloc priest's jaw stretched wide, desperate to scream, yet the venom had paralyzed its vocal cords. Damage numbers floated continuously above its head. 432,843 548 295 4238 between the slashing damage from the scimitar and the continuous poison drain of the deep-sea venom. The Murloc priest lost all strength within seconds. Its body went limp, and its bulging fish eyes rolled white. "Congratulations. You have slain the elite Murloc priest LV.20 using the Azure Sea Scimitar. EXP gained. 42,000. You have leveled up to LV.17. All attributes +5. A dark golden beam of light rose from the Murloc priest's corpse. Xiaolu had high hopes for the drop from an elite monster. But his excitement faded the moment 3 sharp prongs materialized out of thin air. Another trident of the sea god. He barely glanced at it, sweeping it into his ruby ring storage with a flick of his wrist. He spun the azure sea scimitar once around his fingers, catching the hilt securely in his palm again. Its silky balance was utterly addictive to wield. The trident of the sea god felt heavy and domineering, while the azure sea scimitar carried a light, razor-sharp grace. As if gripping a stream of living water in his grasp, he stepped over the priest's corpse and headed for Galmord, the Murloc high priest. This final boss would serve as the perfect offering to temper his blade. The Deep One bowed its head and stepped respectfully aside to let him pass. Galmord lifted its head, its 4 golden pupils locked onto Xia Li's form, blazing with unbridled fury. It was all this human's fault. Churning seawater surged up behind it, and a towering tidal wave crashed over the gunnel, aiming to crush Xia Lu outright. Xia Lu charged straight into the oncoming wall of water, his extreme speed compressing his figure into a fleeting afterimage. The wave slammed hard against the deck, sending sprays of seawater flying. Yet Xia Lu had already circled around to Galmorg's flank before the droplets hit the planks. He swung the scimitar horizontally, its edge slicing cleanly through the Murloc's rib scales, dark golden ichor oozing from the wound as deep-sea venom coated its flesh. Galmorg roared and spun around, slamming a webbed fist toward Xia Lu. Xia Lu dodged backward, his footsteps rippling with dark golden light across the wood. His movement speed bonus was granted by deep tread. He circled behind the high priest, slashing diagonally for a second strike, then sidestepped for a third, spinning to deliver a fourth backhand cut. Swish, swish, swish. Xia Lu darted circles around the Murloc high priest, his speed so blisteringly fast, even his afterimages could not keep pace with his body. Galmorg was utterly disoriented, its fish eyes darting wildly, unable to track its attacker at all. Layers of its flesh were carved away visibly, until nothing remained but a pale skeleton, its internal organs still faintly twitching between the ribs. Congratulations. You have slain Boss Galmorg, Murloc High Priest LV.25 using the Azure Sea Scimitar. EXP gained 300000. You have leveled up to LV.18. All attributes plus 5. You have leveled up to LV.19. All attributes plus 5. Galmorg's bony frame clattered heavily to the deck. A golden pillar of water bucket thickness erupted straight upward from its corpse, 3 meters wide, colliding with the murky green sky before spreading outward to bathe the entire sunken ruins dungeon in blinding daylight. Could it be? Xia Li's eyes lit up with anticipation. This beam's visual effect was unparalleled. What divine artifact would drop? It had to be something massive. The golden light slowly condensed, revealing a tiny gemstone glowing pale blue floating at its center. Xia Li's excitement deflated instantly. Such a spectacular light show, just for something this small? What a waste. He stepped forward to examine it, discovering it was a necklace. Its chain was woven from ultra-fine abyssal silver thread, shimmering with soft rippling light, like gentle waves when caught by illumination. The pendant was a thumb-sized deep blue gem carved into the shape of a teardrop, encapsulating a miniature ocean within its crystal core. Tiny waves crashed endlessly against the gem's inner walls, visible to the naked eye. Name: Heart of the Ocean type. Accessory: necklace equip level. LV.20 usable by all classes. Rank: Supreme Divine Artifact. Attribute bonuses: all attributes plus 1000, stamina additional plus 500. Special effect 1. Deep sea cage within your line of sight. Summon a spherical deep sea domain ranging from 1 to 30 meters in radius that lasts 10 minutes. After the duration expires, casting costs an extra 100 mana per second. The domain is filled with genuine seawater with pressure equivalent to 3,000 meters below sea level and 0 visibility. Enemies trapped inside take water damage equal to 300 of your intelligence per second, suffer a 90 movement speed reduction, and are completely silenced from casting skills. Special effect 2. Deep Sea Dominion. The properties of your deep sea cage spread outward, forcibly rewriting all terrain within the radius into a deep sea environment. This ignores desert or dry land terrain entirely. All hostile targets suffer crushing water pressure slowdowns, chaotic undercurrent interference, and swirling vortex pulling effects. They cannot move or attack normally, cannot cast abilities, and cannot receive external communication or rescue from outside the domain. Every 30 seconds, enemies trapped inside gain a stack of deep sea suffocation, continuously draining their health from oxygen deprivation. If the wearer is already underwater, all debuffs within the domain double in strength, and the maximum radius expands to 200 meters. This domain stacks with Deep Sea Cage. Stacking the two raises the cage's water pressure to match the 10,000-meter abyssal trench. Special effect 3. Abyssal Banishment. Link your deep sea cage to the endless abyssal trench of the ocean. A fissure tears open at the cage's base, dragging all enemies trapped within, along with the seawater, down into the abyss. Banished targets endure 10,000-meter crushing pressure, perpetual darkness, and predation from ancient sea beasts. They lose 8 of their maximum HP every second, damage which bypasses all defense, damage immunity, and revival effects. After 30 seconds, any surviving enemies are ejected back to their original position, permanently losing 20 of all attributes and afflicted with the permanent debuff Deep Sea Terror. Any enemy killed within the abyss leaves their corpse trapped forever at the bottom of the trench. Cooldown, 72 hours. Lore description. According to the oldest Murloc legends, the sea god Neptunus shed a single teardrop as he drew his last breath. The moment this tear fell into the ocean, an unprecedented fissure split open within the deepest abyssal trench of the endless sea, flooding the teardrop with boundless deep-sea power. Carved into the back of the pendant in ancient ocean runes is a single line. The deep sea is the resting place of all life and the tomb of all foes. Holy cow, this thing lets me conjure an entire prison of crushing deep-sea water on command. It silences all skills and blocks outside communication too. No one could endure the torment of being trapped inside. Let them taste unending terror of the abyssal depths. Its attribute bonuses were ridiculously overpowered as well. All attributes boosted by 1,000 points. Xiaolo had never seen such a stat buff before. This was the true power of a dungeon boss's divine artifact. Xiaolo slipped the heart of the ocean around his neck. The instant the pendant touched his skin, a low resonant hum echoed all around him, as if endless surging seawater flooded the air. A faint, intangible bond formed between him and the depths of the ocean. Coldness, weight, and overwhelming solitude washed over his mind. This pendant carries a faint lingering aura of the abyss as a side effect, but it's only a subtle trace. I can bear it easily enough. Meanwhile, at the entrance to the sunken ruins dungeon, Sun Hao burst out of a swirling water vortex and tumbled onto the sandy shore. "Young master, you've arrived." A line of underlings lined up on either side, bowing respectfully. This sunken ruins dungeon doesn't look like much at all. Sun Hao glanced over the coastline with casual amusement, then snapped at his subordinates with a sharp tone. "Hurry up and herd the remaining murlocs over for me to slay. What are you standing around waiting for? Do you think you can afford to waste my precious time?" "Yes, sir, understood." The underlings exchanged a quick glance and hurried toward the stretch of shore where they'd been rounding up murloc stragglers. Sun Hao pulled out his smartphone, snapped a flattering selfie, and sent it straight to his class group chat. "Sun Hao at everyone. I've already entered the sunken ruins dungeon. The Black Tiger Guild men have already cleared most of the area and beaten every murloc to near death, all waiting for me to land the finishing blows. Ugh, leveling like this is far too slow. It doesn't show off the true strength of my S-rank class at all." The chat flooded with flattery instantly. "Zhang Hao, you're incredible. Young Master Sunday, us low-level nobodies will never catch up to you from now on." Wang Jieli, "Young Master Sun, can you bring me along? I'll be completely obedient and handle any task you ask of me." Dozens more messages followed, all repeating variations of "amazing, young Master Sunday." Sun Hao scrolled through them one by one, thoroughly satisfied by their praise. Maybe if he was feeling generous later, he'd toss them a few scraps of leftover loot. Next, he opened his social media app and took a photo facing the sunken ship. In the picture, he stood on the shore with his blazing sun sword slung over one shoulder, the murky green sky and ancient wrecked vessel visible in the background. His caption read, "Exclusive run of the sunken ruins. Witness the true value of an S-rank class. Wait till you see my level jump later." Likes and comments flooded in the second he hit post. Satisfied, he locked his phone, slung the blazing sun sword over his shoulder, and strode toward the sea with an arrogant swagger. A few underlings Tiger Biao had posted to guard the dungeon entrance hurried forward to greet him. "Young Master Sun, Brother Tiger sent us to." "Enough, don't follow me." Sun Hao waved them off without turning his head. "Stay posted here and bar anyone else from entering. I'm claiming all dungeon EXP for myself. You'll only steal my progress if you tag along." The underlings shared uneasy glances but dared not argue, stepping back to their posts. Sun Hao stepped out onto the water's surface. Flames from his blazing sun sword billowed beneath his feet, evaporating seawater into thick, white mist. He mentally replayed the perfect scenario he'd imagined for the dungeon run. He would board the sunken ship to find every murloc already crippled and kneeling on the deck, beaten half to death by Tiger Biao's crew. He would leap down from the gunwale and land a single killing blow on each, watching EXP numbers scroll nonstop as he leveled up 5 times in a row. Then he'd march over to the murloc boss, the ancient fish creature with both legs broken and barely clinging to life, and press his blazing sun sword to its throat for the final strike. He'd collect massive EXP, triggering a server-wide system announcement. The entire class chat, every social media feed, and all of Linhai City would know his name. He would become Linhai's top genius, and the whole world would bow beneath his feet. A shrill, deafening shriek suddenly erupted from the direction of the sunken ship. Tiger Biao must be starting the fight already. I need to hurry over there. He quickened his pace across the waves, only for a system alert to blast inside his mind the very next second. System announcement: Dungeon Sunken Ruins final boss, Galmorg, Murloc High Priest, has been slain. First clear of Sunken Ruins dungeon completed. The Sunken Ruins dungeon will reset in 10 minutes. All players still inside will be forcibly teleported to the dungeon entrance. Please prepare accordingly. Sunhow froze mid-step. What the hell? This happened last time with the Goblin Nest dungeon too. Now it's happening again. He hadn't even fully entered the dungeon yet, and it was already cleared out? Sunhow glanced down at his character level, a pitiful LV.3. Sunhow completely lost his cool. He bore the prestigious S-Rank Blazing Sun Sword Sage class. Not only did no one make way for him in the dungeons, someone kept stealing his boss kills and clearing the instance ahead of him. Last time with the Goblin Nest, the dungeon was finished before he could slay more than a handful of monsters, forcing an early evacuation. Now he'd arranged a private, exclusive run of the Sunken Ruins, only for someone to clear it first again? How was he supposed to level up at this rate? Rage burned hot in his chest, and his phone buzzed nonstop with new notifications from the group chat and social media. Every new message felt like a slap to his pride. Twice. This has happened twice now. I'm an S-Rank Blazing Sun Sword Sage. The whole class knows I booked exclusive access to this dungeon. My grandfather personally arranged the guild men to hold it for me. Sunhow screamed, grabbing the tall, thin underling by the collar and shaking him violently. I just posted about my dungeon run online. The whole school, the whole city of Linhai are watching. Now someone sniped the boss before I even laid eyes on a single murloc. When I head back, everyone's gonna see I'm still stuck at LV.3, just LV.3. How am I supposed to explain this? Say someone stole the clear from under my nose. Young Master Sun, we truly never saw anyone slip past the guards. The tall, thin subordinate's head wobbled as Sunhow shook him, his voice trembling. The beach was completely cleared when Brother Tiger's team dove underwater. We didn't spot a soul. Then did an alien slay the boss? Sunhow shoved the underling hard, sending him crashing onto the sand. Then he whirled around to seize another subordinate. You speak. Did the intruder slip past all of you right under your watch? Young Master Sun, we. The underlings wore helpless expressions, unable to offer any explanation. A massive splash suddenly erupted across the sea surface, and a figure emerged from the rolling waves. Tiger Biao dragged himself onto the shore, leaning heavily on his half-man wide battle axe. The left side of his face was swollen badly, a fresh gash on his forehead, still oozing blood. His tiger-striped guild uniform was torn open in multiple places, revealing dark purple bruises covering his torso. The three full teams he'd led behind him looked equally defeated and miserable. He tramped over to Sunhow, driving his axe blade into the sand, and gasped for air heavily, eyes darting away with a look of utter helplessness. Sunhow dropped the underling in his grip and stormed straight up to him. Tiger Biao, you're just in time. Explain this to me. He jabbed a finger toward the sunken ship. You promised the dungeon was fully secured. You swore every murloc was beaten to near death. You said you'd play the decoy, so I could claim all the kills. Where's the boss now? Where's all the EXP? Where's my level boost? Tiger Biao parted his lips, but could not find a single word to reply. He had witnessed the carnage aboard the sunken ship firsthand. The scene he'd seen had been utterly horrifying and brutal for the murloc horde. Young Master Sun, the situation is nothing like what we planned. He forced the words out with great difficulty. There's a person aboard that wreck who... A person who what? An alien? Did some extraterrestrial scare all of you grown men witless? Tiger Biao's Adam's apple bobbed nervously, and he lowered his head without another word. He could not admit that his entire team hadn't even gotten a single chance to attack once they reached the wreck. If they tried to engage that mysterious figure, every last one of them would have died. A towering wave suddenly surged upward against the natural tide, defying all natural laws. Every head turned toward the sea, and all bodies stiffened in shock. A lone figure stood atop the crest of the unnatural wave, looking otherworldly beyond belief. Sunhow stared on in stunned silence. The figure's entire body shimmered with sea blue radiance, a visual marker exclusive to equipment of a rank quality or higher. Deep navy armor wrapped its frame, rippling with undulating light mimicking ocean tides. A helmet visor covered its full face, streams of glowing blue data scrolling endlessly across the surface. Sunhow tried to view the figure's status panel, only to receive a single system prompt. Status unviewable. Its aura was fully masked, making its level undetectable, and its class completely unidentifiable. A dark navy trident hung strapped to its back, a curved scimitar slung diagonally at its waist, and an exquisitely crafted deep blue gem pendant rested on its chest. With every step it took, the seawater beneath its feet solidified into glowing wave-shaped steps, carrying it steadily across the open water to the sandy shore. Layers of radiance intertwined across his full set of gear. Standing before him felt like facing an entire surging ocean of light. Sun Hao had never laid eyes on such top-tier equipment in his life. The S-grade chest plate his grandfather had treasured for 20 years also shimmered with flowing light, yet it paled in utter comparison to the gear covering the young man before him. It was barely worthy of being tossed in the trash. He licked his lips and swallowed hard. If only this gear belonged to him. Paired with his S-grade class, he dared not imagine how overwhelmingly powerful he would become. Hu Biao's expression darkened sharply. He shot forward a hand and clamped it hard onto Sun Hao's shoulder, his grip crushing tight. Hold your tongue. Address him as senior. Senior. Sun Hao's face twitched. Who does he think he is for me to call him senior? My grandfather is the guild master of Black Tiger Guild. Every guild member in Linhai City bows their head and calls me young master Sun. Even your grandfather would bow to him. Hu Biao ground the words out between his teeth. This man single-handedly slew the mermaid high priest aboard the sunken vessel in under 10 seconds. That S-grade chest plate your grandfather hoarded isn't even scrap metal next to the armor he wears. Just call him senior. Pain shot through Sun Hao's shoulder, and Hu Biao's gaze held a gravity he had never seen before. Gritting his teeth, he lowered his head and spoke the words. Senior. The newcomer looked down at him from above, clad in full divine gear rippling with sea-blue luminescence. Then he opened his mouth. Kneel. His voice was soft, yet carried unyielding dominance. Hu Biao and the others exchanged a quick glance before dropping to their knees without hesitation. Only Sun Hao remained standing. Realizing he was the sole one upright, he gritted his teeth and slowly sank to the ground as well. He'd gained no experience points, and now he'd been forced to kneel before a stranger. The newcomer stared silently down at them, then slowly lifted his right hand. The ruby ring glinted brightly, and a dark golden-spiked club materialized out of thin air in his grasp. Dense sharp spikes lined its surface, glinting with frigid cold light. Seawater surged up behind him, weaving together to form a weapon rack that held the golden-spiked club aloft. A mechanical, electronic voice echoed out next. This is a divine artifact. It guarantees a critical hit and stun on every head strike, ignoring all boss resistance. Every person present snapped their heads upward. At the words Supreme Divine Artifact, they nearly drooled with greed. The guaranteed headshot stun mechanic alone made their hearts pound wildly. This single artifact could catapult any of them to unprecedented heights. With proper planning afterward, no boss would stand a chance against them. More than a few even harbored a fleeting thought. If they could get their hands on this club, they would abandon Black Tiger Guild at once. It was powerful enough to let them found their own independent guild. Xiaolu swept his gaze over their covetous stares and tossed out a casual remark. Come collect it at the abandoned warehouse on the northern outskirts in half an hour. With that, he recalled the artifact and turned away. Seawater swirled together into a portal before him, and he stepped out of the sunken vessel instance. Sun Hao stared blankly at his fading back, dumbfounded as he spoke. Who exactly is he? What does he mean by come collect it? Is he just giving the divine artifact to us for free? Why not hand it straight to me? Hu Biao shot him a sharp glance and said gravely, What's there to wonder about? Hurry back and tell your grandfather that an unknown powerhouse has arrived in Linhai City, draped in full supreme divine artifacts, capable of soloing a mermaid boss, and he's voluntarily giving away a divine artifact. This changes everything. Let's go back to the guild. Xiaolu stepped out of the swirling portal onto the sandy shore. The sky stretched overhead, clear blue dotted with fluffy white clouds, a soothing sight to behold. Several Black Tiger Guild professional awakeners lingered near the instant's entrance. They glanced over instinctively when they spotted him emerging, then froze in confusion. Where had he gone? The deep-sea helmet's camouflage force field had wrapped around his body, masking his figure entirely. Without specialized detection skills, the naked eye could barely make him out. He walked away from the instance, mentally plotting his next moves as he went. The bait had been laid for Black Tiger Guild, the Golden Spiked Club, with its guaranteed headshot stun that ignored all boss resistances. This divine artifact counted as a strategic level weapon for any guild that possessed it. Sun Hao was nothing more than a fool, but his grandfather Sun Dishing was far shrewder. A man who could rise to guild master of Black Tiger Guild would fully grasp the immense value of this club. They would definitely head to the northern outskirts warehouse to claim it. Now all that remained was waiting for news from his young aunt. She would leak word of the artifact to the Bloodhand gang. The guild clash sparked by a single golden spiked club would surely be a spectacular sight. Elsewhere, Lu Xiu hummed a light tune as she clicked her heels and high heels into the Professional Awakener Administration building. She stopped at the entrance to the assessment hall, pulled a small compact mirror from her bag, and tidied her hair. Though she wore an office lady suit paired with sheer black pantyhose, her entire body was clad in divine artifacts, concealed only by the passive effect of her title, unassuming presence. A dozen people already waited inside the hall, all government employees taking the internal combat assessment, every single one male, with her as the only woman. At the examiner's table, Section Chief Li Guohua took off his reading glasses, frowned, and stared at Lu Shiyu for several long seconds, then sighed. He picked up his pen, found her name on the roster, and ticked a box beside it, muttering quietly to himself. Silly girl. She had a stable clerical position, yet she insisted on transferring to a combat post. A C-tier class, she barely stands a chance. The assessment followed a tournament arena format. The ring was paved with gray stone bricks, ringed by a pale blue protective barrier. The referee was a 50-something retired veteran with a thick beard and a booming voice. First match, Lu Shiyu versus Zhao Gang. Step onto the ring, both of you. Zhao Gang stood up from the opposing contestant bench. A burly man in his early 30s clad in iron gray combat plate armor. A half-man greatsword strapped to his back. Level 27 swordsman. The stone tiles trembled beneath his boots as he strode onto the ring. He glanced down at Lu Shiyu across the arena, taking in her office attire, high heels and sheer black pantyhose, and let out a mocking laugh. Is this some kind of special treat for me? I make it a rule never to strike women, but having a lady opponent puts me in a tough spot. He pulled the great sword off his back and planted its tip firmly on the ring's stone. Tell me, should I hold back or go all out against you? Chuckles rippled through the spectator stands. Lu Shiyu said nothing, drawing a dark golden-spiked club from her waistband and weighing it lightly in her hands. She gripped it with both hands as if preparing to swing a baseball bat, sinking into a low, wide stance. Her legs covered in black pantyhose were braced firmly on the stone. Zhao Gang raised an eyebrow and snickered. Hey, honestly, how about I go easy on you? No need to crash out on your first match and embarrass yourself. You're a pretty, delicate thing. I can't bear to land a hard hit on you. How about this? After the assessment wraps up, you grab dinner with me and we become friends. I'll watch your back for any workplace trouble from now on. Sound good? Lu Shiyu twirled the club once, planting its tip against the ground and lifting her gaze to meet his eyes. A faint, knowing smile tugged at her lips. Beat me first, then we'll talk. Oh, quite the bold attitude. Zhao Gang bared his teeth in a sinister grin and hefted his great sword from his shoulder. Fine, don't come crying afterward. That outfit of yours would look far less lovely streaked with tears. The referee raised his right hand. Prepare, begin. Zhao Gang pushed off with all his leg strength, charging forward like a rampaging rhinoceros toward Lu Shiyu. His greatsword was raised high above his head, pale red battle aura flickering along its blade edge. A sharp metallic clang rang out. His sword sliced through empty air and crashed hard into the stone ring floor instead. The mismatch left Zhao Gang utterly disoriented. What speed is this? He spun around in shock to see Lu Shiyu had slid backward nearly 3 meters away. The passive ability Slippery Retreat from Coward's Evasion Boots had triggered automatically the moment she came under attack. This gear's absolutely flawless. I'll properly reward Xia Lu when I get back. Lu Shiyu thought with a grin. Wearing a full set of divine artifacts felt incredible. She let out a clear battle cry, gripping the golden-spiked club with both hands and swinging it straight down toward Zhao Gang's skull. Zhao Gang's pupils constricted, desperate to dodge, but the club moved as if guided by a homing instinct. Boom! A deep, resonant clang echoed, like striking a giant bell. The golden-spiked club crashed dead center into his helmet. Zhao Gang froze rigidly on the spot, a deep dent caving into his headgear. His vision blurred and swam, his full HP bar plummeting to a sliver of remaining health in an instant. A bright red damage value floated above his head, drawing a collective gasp from every spectator. 189302 Zhao Gang toppled backward stiff as a board, unconscious, his greatsword still embedded in the arena stone. Referee. Lu Shiyu slung the club over one shoulder and tilted her chin toward him. Aren't you going to start the count? The referee snapped out of his stupor, rushing forward to kneel beside Zhao Gang and check his condition. He stood straight and raised his right hand high. Zhao Gang is rendered incapable of combat. Winner, Lu Shiyu. A dead silence blanketed the spectator stands, then erupted into a deafening uproar. Did anyone see that damage number? 180,000? I thought she's only a C-tier class. A clerical worker? This is a clerk. Unbelievable. Medics sprinted onto the ring with a stretcher and carried Zhao Gang away. Li Guohua took off his reading glasses, his face etched with total astonishment. A single club strike, one shot a level 27 swordsman? How could such a thing be possible?